Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's our transfer deadline day special. We're live all the way through until the window shuts at 11 o'clock. We'll be here. I'm Stephen Brown. With me as well at the moment it's Chris Bell.
Hello, mate. You're right.
Sale.
I did.
And we've got Dave Foy as well.
Hello.
We're going to be joined by various people throughout the show as well. So we've got Tom Cardiff on a little bit later. We've got Jason Booker. And we've also got a clip from Stephen Downs as well, who'll be chatting all things Huddersfield Town as well, which we're looking forward to. But fellas, I don't know if you've been following it all day like I have. I've just been constantly refreshing Twitter. It's been, I think this might be the most bonkers transfer window ever, I think with the Saudi Arabia factor in there as well. But I mean, starting with you, Chris, what have you made of it so far?
You're right. It has been pretty good, hasn't it? There's actually been new things, it seems like, every hour or so, rather than it just being the same old repeated stories time and time again. I think the Saudi Arabia thing has certainly put the twist on it. The whole Mo Salah thing, will he or won't he? Will they actually get a bid accepted? Is going to play out. I mean, to be fair, the thing we talked, in a bit of WhatsApp group earlier about the fact that the Saudi window goes on for another week. So whilst all the European leagues, shut today, Germany's already closed, of course, that things could still change quite drastically. But there's been a lot of interesting deals done. And I'm just going to throw out, of all the transfer news I've seen over the last day or two, the strangest one for me, I think, is Keenan Davis from Aston Villa to Udinese. Where the hell did that come from? Keenan Davis would have been a perfectly acceptable transfer, to be fair, for Leeds looking for a striker, amongst a few other clubs at Championship level. But no, he's buggered off to Italy instead. Where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, absolutely. Lewis, do you enjoy the transfer window? Do you kind of look forward to the madness of it, or do you think that it gets a bit tiring? Or, I mean, I guess it depends if you've had a good window. I mean, you're Bradford Park Avenue supporter, but obviously Newcastle as well. You're a supporter of them as well. I mean, what do you make a transfer, the transfer window and the deadline day itself?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, I remember the time when there wasn't almost a transfer deadline day. It has almost seemed to be quite sensationalized, it seems to be quite of a big commercial thing now, doesn't it? But I think the transfer window in general, it adds a lot of excitement to it. I imagine it adds a lot of stress and worry for a lot of people, agents, administration, managers, players. I think one thing that we do quite often forget about is what it actually means to a player and their families, because, 1 minute there could be a club relatively settled, the next minute, like Chris just mentioned there, potentially moving to a completely different country. So, I can imagine it is a very stressful time for people, but from a neutral's perspective like ourselves, I mean, it's great to watch. It is one day in the calendar for football fans to get, looking forward to. And especially, I think more so this one, probably more so in January, because, for a lot of teams now, it's getting themselves set up for the rest of the season. And yeah, even though it is different for non-league, especially from my selfish perspective from a Newcastle angle, is we've had a decent transfer window. Obviously no news today, but it's actually a really good position to be in, because 18 months ago we were desperately going around and trying to find players to fit the system and what Eddie Howe wanted. So yeah, it's quite nice to sit back, relax and just watch it from afar.
Indeed. We should mention, hopefully in about 10 minutes or so, we're going to get Ollie Johnson on, who is player and coach at Bradford Park Avenue, and he's going to entertain us, I'm sure, with some fascinating stories from the transfer windows of the past. If you're watching the video, please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be here till 11 o'clock, so get involved as well. Get your comments in. What are you thinking about the transfer window? Who do you support? Let us know your hopes, if there's any deals that can be done before that window closes. We've also got Dave on as well, our resident Halifax Town correspondent. Dave, what do you make of the transfer window? Does it kind of pass you by? Obviously, we know how kind of entangled
a little bit
non-league world, but what are your thoughts, mate?
It does affect us because we've got players that have Football League aspirations that are under contract, and I mean the most famous example was we lost Jamie Vardy to Fleetwood on this transfer window in 2011. We had him until the final day, and I foolishly thought we may actually get to the window closing without him leaving, but he left. He'd have left about 12 years ago today at dinner time to Fleetwood. So it does affect it will affect some non-league teams that have got players, that have Football League aspirations that still try to sort out deals. I mean, we've currently got Jess Deborah still without a club after, his contract ended at the end of last season. He's still not picked up another club. There's various rumours that he's training with teams down south. Chris Millington's publicly said he's put something in place with himself and his agent, and he hasn't heard back. Obviously, he's played his cards close to his chest in regards to what that is. Halifax have signed 2 players this week. We're not under transfer deadlines basically, but we have actually signed 2 players this week. One that we've had on trial, and I think was all but signed. It was 99.9% done, and obviously he hasn't been able to play for the club, but he's trialled for the club. It may happen higher up the non-league pyramid, but I've noticed since we got back to 5th tier level, maybe 10 years ago, what we do is we trial players right until the very, very last minute. Like, they'll be known as trialist throughout pre-season, and then the morning of the season kicking off, it'd be like, oh, we've signed Nathan Clark, and it's like, that's a surprise because he's been trialing for like 2 months, and we've known from that point on. And social media are saying it's like the blonde-haired trialist that's playing number 4, and everybody's like, do you mean Nathan Clark? I've heard it's basically a cost-cutting exercise, so you don't have to essentially pay players over pre-season while you're still trialing them, even if you know that you're going to sign them. Obviously, it gives, I'm just talking about trialing now, it gives players still that opportunity in that window should they get an offer from higher up or they want to try somewhere else. They are still trialing. They have no commitment to that particular team. But Halifax, and I think most clubs at that level, they trial maybe 5 or 6 players that they know they're going to sign, or they're 99% confident they're going to sign. So in terms of his own transfers, we've signed Tom Wilson from Belper Town, who's a young centre-back. I think he won lots of accolades, been sent with his best, with best wishes from Belper and their supporters on his personal Twitter feed. And we've signed a striker whose name escapes me, but it's something like Jamal Chikwanda. It's somebody that Andy Cooper, our assistant manager, has worked with at youth team level when he was involved at Leeds United. But he's had a full season out of the game after being released by Watford, of all teams. So it's a case of, again, Millington's given both answers that would cover both bases. He's, on the one hand, he's saying that we need competition for places up top, but at the same time, he's saying he may need to go out on loan also. I mean, he's had 12 months essentially without playing any football. But yeah, a couple of signings. Obviously, the window's not really that relevant. I don't think any of the current squad that are under contract, I don't think there's any danger of them leaving. Any of our promising players have tended to get deals in place pretty early. Manny D left early. Jess Deborah, as I've already mentioned, his contract was up. In a lot of cases, we don't have players on long-term contracts. They tend to be year to year, or they can be a year with an option if certain things are triggers, appearances or whatever. It's a real balancing act, and there can be a lot of tiptoeing around, and there's positives and negatives to how we run our club in terms of stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember last season, Lewis, when we were chatting about Bradford Park Avenue and their preparation going into last season. And I remember you saying, we've got a lot of trialists in this team, like what Dave was saying there. And I guess your concern is, are they going to be good enough? How many are actually going to make the grade? And it's that thing of, it doesn't feel very secure, does it, in a way, that they're not signed, on the dotted line. But do you think that had an impact in your season last year then, the fact that you were going into the season that later on with just trialists?
Yeah, I do. And I think, the argument could be made over the past couple of seasons as well, really. Especially when, like Dave mentioned, a lot of those trialists are either experienced players who, for whatever reason, have not got a club or are keeping fit, or there could be young kids who've been released by academies and wanting to work their way back up. Examples for us at Avenue of in recent years is Lewis Knight, were at Leeds United Academy, then moved to America to try and make it over there, and then came back over here to try and make his name for it. And he's got to move into, at the time, into the National League. And another one who is currently playing with us is Lucas Dunstan, another junior at Leeds, went to Hull City, picked up a really serious injury for 2 years, and he's come back, came on trial with us. And it's weird, isn't it? You watch games at our level, and sometimes you can tell the quality of players who are trialing to stand out. You know, they've got time on the ball, they look comfortable, but they've just got that little bit, I wouldn't say necessarily X factor, but they've just got that bit of quality that stands out. And Lucas is one of those. At today's point, you're spot on. I think, you know, it does affect non-league clubs to an extent of, you know, if EFL clubs are wanting to sign players, this is a time to do it. And it's, can you replace them players throughout the season, obviously without the restrictions until the end of March, really. You know, for instance, if Avenue lost Lucas Dunstan tonight at right back, don't get me wrong, I know he got 2 yellow cards, so he'll be suspended for the first 3 games he might play for his new club, but it's how do you replace that player at right back within your budget constraints, getting somebody in, the season's just started, so it's a conundrum, but yeah, it does add some, you know, intricacies into having trialists coming in, whereas, you know, EFL teams, they might have, we know, maybe 1 or 2 trialists at absolute most. They know what they're going to go with and are already probably, or being honest, probably kind of know what the squad's going to look like, you know, the day after transfer deadline day.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, it's been a kind of mixed bag for our teams that are in the EFL. So the top of the pyramid, you've got Leeds, Huddersfield, Bradford City, Leeds United, very active window, a lot of outgoings, but looks to be kind of ending in a more positive fashion, depending on certain individuals that might be making their way down to the coast down south. Hopefully not. We'll see. Then you've got Huddersfield Town on the other end of the spectrum. A lot of issues going on at Town at the moment. And then you've got Bradford City, who've brought a couple of loanies in today. What do you make of kind of how our teams are doing so far in that EFL with the window?
I mean, for a start, you're just hoping for a very, very enjoyable evening, really, aren't you?
Oh, it's Leeds, though. How can you? You just can't relax, can you? You just can't relax.
Even if Sinisterra does make that move to Bournemouth, you could certainly expect, I reckon, a couple of incomings, surely.
But how does it work? Like, for me, though, it's like at this time now, we're talking about 8:30, medicals and travelling and this kind of stuff. I mean, how is it going to get done? How are things going to get done?
I think there's certain things that can be broken, so to speak, like medicals,
like an emergency.
Yeah, you can get things done. You can get like a partial medical done rather than the full blown thing. I don't necessarily know if loans need the medicals in all circumstances or not, actually. No. I don't know whether there's any stipulation. And also, there's the thing where technically we could stay on to about 1 a.m. and there will probably still be some deals to go through because the amount of times you watch Deadline Day and it gets to 11 o'clock and they say, well, don't go ahead yet because there's all these deal sheets and slips that get sent in to say, look, we want to do this deal. We're just not quite going to have enough time and it's done by 1, 2 a.m. So if you want to be in for a really long night, then it could be all right. Who knows?
Yeah, well, this is it, because I remember...
I've got to pick up in the morning, so that ain't happening.
Until 3 a.m. Well, I remember last season, Leeds had tried to sign numerous players and it had bombed. Like, we had this horrible last couple of weeks of the window. And I went to bed thinking, we've not signed anyone. We've not got this striker in. And then I woke up in the morning, we'd signed Willie Nonto. Like, it came through that we'd signed Nonto and it was like 4 a.m. or something by the time it got clearance. So that's how it can work, isn't it, really?
It's absolutely bonkers, isn't it? It really is. As you say, just touching on Huddersfield, I mean, obviously we'll hear from Steve Downs a little bit later. We seem to have gone from last season when Steve was quite down about the way things were at Town to then the takeover and Steve being really, really excitable to suddenly being here we are on deadline day, not a huge amount of transfer activity. And as you'll see, Steve... he's not in a great place right now, is he, with his love for Town?
Apparently he's busy tonight. Do we believe that, or is
he busy? He was just trying to avoid it, wasn't he? The fact that it's going to be a transfer deadline day in which Huddersfield do the square root of bugger all by the looks of it. And as for Bradford, well, we'll get onto them a little bit later as well, but a couple of players in for them. And that's... it's more their season, their start on the pitch, I think, that's concerning rather than their transfers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll see how we get on.
We will indeed. We're going to be joined, though, now by former Guiseley, Norwich, Stockport County, and current Bradford Park Avenue and, player and the coach as well, Ollie Johnson. Thanks for joining us, Ollie.
Hi, fellas. No problem. Cheers for having us.
First things first, how are you finding deadline day? I imagine now, with your career where it is, it's just more about sitting back and watching the fun unfold on telly.
Yeah, I've got a bit pretty relaxing night. Just been watching Luton West Ham. That's about as exciting as it's going to get for me, I think.
So obviously, OJ brought you on transfer deadline day. What experience have you got? Obviously, people probably know you locally in non-league region, but you did play FL days, didn't you? In your day with Stockport and Norwich. So
Yeah.
kind of how did that work around the club?
I mean, so I had 4 or 5 years in the professional game. I had a few moves. I think there was only like a couple of occasions where there was something in the pipeline on sort of deadline day. Once in a loan window, which didn't materialise, and then once when Norwich were trying to move me on. This is when they got to the Prem, and I were surplus to requirements. So as it happened that night, I was just at home back in Wakefield, just waiting for the phone to ring. Really, there's a group of about 8 lads who obviously weren't part of the plans moving into the Premier League season, which were fully expected and fine, not a problem. But I mean, at the time, I was a little bit naive, I think. I didn't really ask many questions. I don't think my agent were doing much for me. I'd just come off the back of a decent loan spell at Yeovil. I got an handful of goals and done quite well. So I thought, I was probably naive enough to think that there'd be clubs queuing up for me. But as it turned out, I still had a year left on my contract. There was a few things coming up which just never happened. So it came all the way to sort of this day in 2011. Just one little story. I ended up with a voicemail off Phil Parkinson. So I was really close to signing for Bradford City on loan. So I had a little voicemail just kind of saying, we're going to keep tabs on you. We're interested. Obviously, nothing we were going to get done that night because it was probably about 9-10 p.m. that night. But I ended up going in to train with them. Sorry, I didn't train with them. I played in a behind closed doors game. I was taken around the stadium, spoke to the chairman, Phil Parkinson. I think I did all right in the game. I scored, but it just kind of fell away. I can't remember the reason. Something to do with like wages or my loan. I've heard he's quite elusive as well when it comes to you can be interested and then next minute you just don't hear out. So I think that's kind of what happened. So that kind of fell through in the end. Ended up back at Yeovil that season. So I mean that night on transfer deadline day were sort of the only time where I was kind of sat by the phone waiting for something to happen.
How difficult is it, OJ, when you're waiting for that phone call, especially transfer deadline? I know we were saying earlier that it does cause probably a little bit of stress and worry for you as players and family as well. Is that something that you're really holding on to get that move at? One you probably want, but maybe need for your career.
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, if the move didn't come off that night, I would have had to go back to Norwich the next day, which I didn't really fancy that. I've been training by myself with another group of lads, and they all seemed to get the move. So just mainly for that reason, I just wanted to get something sorted. But it didn't. It was another couple of weeks before I got it sorted when I went back down to Yeovil. But they were nice enough to tell me I don't need to come back into Norwich. I stayed in Wakefield for 2 weeks, waiting for something to happen. I mean, at the time, as I say, I kind of never really questioned anything because I was quite naive, quite young, quite fresh to the professional game. I think the problem I had was I was probably just quite happy to, wherever I was just quite happy to be a professional footballer. But when I look back, it was quite damaging for my career because I didn't play a game for like 6 months, no pre-season games, weren't really match fit. So when I went back into Yeovil, I was miles off the pace. That was the second time I'd been, and that were a bit of a disappointing loan spell in the end. So, but yeah. To answer your question, it was probably the only time where I was kind of anxiously, hoping something to happen in my career, really, that I can think of.
In terms of obviously your fellow teammates in the dressing room, and I know stuff happens in the dressing room, stays in the dressing room, but I suppose when you've got close teammates that you're working day in, day out with, and they get moved to somewhere else, does that have a little bit of an effect on you and your form and the team morale around the place a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I remember at the time, just ringing a few of the other lads, they were all decent players who'd played, quite a lot of league games, and they were slowly just getting their moves throughout the summer. And obviously, I weren't really getting mine. Things were coming up and just nothing were happening. I mean, I don't know whether to blame my agent for that or what, but my agent at the time. But yeah, I remember just speaking to him thinking, like, I thought I'd done all right here. Like, there's been teams after me for the last, few years. I've ended up at Norwich, but I think for me, it just showed a bit of naivety about the game, really, and how quickly it can only take a matter of moments before you fall off the radar and stuff like that.
And I suppose as well, yourself starting at Nostell and kind of full circle being back in non-league, obviously the transfer deadline doesn't necessarily apply to non-league teams unless somebody's moving to an AFL club. Is that, how does that fit in terms of, like you say, getting used to it and signing play throughout the window? And, is it a completely different complexion on things when you're playing, and especially now in a coaching role?
Yeah, I suppose at like this level, it's not as relevant really, the transfer window. I think there is some sort of maybe possibly the National League. There's possibly transfer windows. I'm not really too aware of it, but yeah, I mean, it's a little bit different at this level, isn't it? It's probably not something at the forefront of lads' mind, but I suppose as you move higher up the ladder, it's quite a big thing. I think with the Prem now, it's been a bit glamorized with all the money and getting a little bit crazy in it, really. Just watching a few transfers today, and it's just, you kind of get desensitized to transfers now. It used to be a big thing, but I just feel like you see a big move for 40-50 million, and it's just quite an average player in Premier League terms. No disrespect to obviously Premier League players, but you see pretty average top level players going for just
I mean,
money, really, don't you?
If it was the same money back then that it is now, OJ, you'd have a £25 million player, wouldn't you?
Well, maybe 25 grand. No, but I suppose the money's probably life changing. Even from 10 years ago, it's probably quite life changing now for players, even at League One Championship level. The money I'd imagine that they're on, and the fees and stuff. So fair play to them. You got to make hay while the sun shines, I suppose.
Obviously, season started, and how is it going so far, OJ? Obviously, we know that Avenue started the season a little bit tricky, but unbeaten in 4. You went back to your old place and at Nevermore on Monday as well. Are things just starting to gather a little bit of momentum, do you think?
I would say so. I remember saying to one of the other lads that I think we've had the first 2 games were probably 2 of the hardest games we could have had, but for completely different reasons. Obviously, we've played arguably one of the top 2 teams in the league. I'd imagine that's the way it'll pan out. And then probably one of the toughest away games in terms of how we want to play football, what probably doesn't suit our game. Long grass, a physical side who are, in your face, high intensity, pressing you. So I think there was a few words in the dressing room after that, but I don't think there was any sort of panic. It was, the word 2 tough games. Then we soon saw at Bamber Bridge more of a level playing field as far as that division is concerned, I think, in terms of what your typical game's going to look like. I think since then, arguably we should have, in my opinion, won all 4 games. I think we should have won all 4 games, in my opinion. So I think we're looking all right. I think, obviously, we're a bit light on numbers. So, for example, we lose Lundy, and it's a huge loss, and we don't really have anyone to step in at the minute to replace him. So we need everyone fit all season. We probably don't have the resources just to bring players in whenever we like. But I think it's about keeping everyone fit, and I think we should be well up there, really.
Great, and finally, from me, in terms of FA Cup tomorrow, have you got any stories about FA Cup, OJ, that you want to share? Can you remember anything? And if not, in terms of that, it's just obviously back up at concert from where you may have been before, I think, as well, with Avenue.
I've not personally been to concert, but
right.
I hope it's nothing like Ashington anyway, because that I want to forget. To be honest, personally, my best memories of the FA Cup were playing for Nostell.
Right.
That's partly where I kind of kicked on at sort of 20 years old. We had a decent little cup run. I think we beat someone like North West County, and then we went to Warrington, drew 0-0 away at Warrington, obviously you can see where they are now as a club. This were like 2008, but we brought them back to ours and lost 2-1. But that was the start of the season where I really kicked on and got the trial at Stockport not long after. So that's probably my best memory. Not very glamorous, but I think I went bench in third round for Norwich against Leyton Orient, but never got on. So that's about it really in terms of FA Cup.
Cool. That's brilliant, OJ. Appreciate your time. We'll leave you to watch your football in peace and catch up on what you might have been 25 years ago. And on that note, I'll probably see you tomorrow on the coach about 9 o'clock-ish. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm on the coach, but might see you.
Cool. Cheers, OJ.
All right. See you. Cheers.
There we go. A little insight into the transfer window and what goes on and everything. Interesting stories there. Really appreciate Ollie coming on there. Hopefully a good result for the Avenue tomorrow there. We're going to move on now to Huddersfield Town. Our mate Stephen Downs, our Huddersfield Town correspondent. He's pre-recorded because he couldn't be with us on tonight's show. His thoughts about Huddersfield Town, what's happened in the window. Obviously, some quite explosive comments from Neil Warnock at the end of the press conference for Huddersfield Town yesterday. Seems to be a little bit of a difference of opinion, shall we say, to put it mildly. We do have to mention also we were scheduled to have an interview with Bradford City CEO Ryan Sparks earlier tonight. Unfortunately, that couldn't go ahead. Hopefully, we will have that in the future. So Steve does make reference to that. But yeah, just ignore that. We will make that happen in the future. But yeah, enjoy this from Steve, and we'll be back shortly.
Hi everybody. Sorry I can't be on the podcast this evening. Got other commitments on. But yeah, it's transfer deadline day special. So good luck to the boys for running the podcast on transfer deadline day. It might cause a bit of chaos and madness on their end, but yeah, just wanted to reflect on Town, even though I'm not on the live podcast. This is a pre-recorded segment. Yeah, so obviously we lost 4-0 at home to Norwich. Very disappointing defeat. Not a good performance at all from a lot of the aspects, really. The first goal, Lee Nichols, don't really know what he was doing. I'm not going to go into every goal because a lot of them were, well, at least 3 of them were atrocious. But the first goal, uncharacteristic mistake from Lee Nichols. He's made a few errors so far this season. Obviously, last season, he massively helped us out. I just think, he's made a few errors so far this season, and I don't really know why that is. But yeah, the penalty for the second goal, I've seen them given, I've seen them not given. I understand why he gave the penalty. Pearson's foot came very high up and took the Norwich lad out. But, again, Pearson wasn't really looking at the man. He was looking at the ball when the ball came into the box. So I see why the referee gave it. But, maybe that's a reason why we should have VAR in the Championship. Not that it made much of a difference in this game, albeit because we conceded very soon after half time, even though Warnock thought that we had a decent chance of getting back into the game. Norwich are a good side. They've got some great players, good passing movement. They work teams really well. Wagner, obviously our ex head coach, has got them really playing down there and scoring goals for fun, really. So I think they're going to end up being one of the top teams in this division, to be honest, with the way that they're playing at the moment. And showing what they can do on and off the ball. But yeah, for Town, it's so depressing at the moment. I'm trying to keep positive, and usually I do err on the side of positivity, but even I'm finding it hard at the moment. It's been a very tough start to the season, and don't get me wrong, we've had, some of the toughest fixtures going. Although Borough's down there, that's tough. Norwich, Leicester, Plymouth on the opening day, obviously coming up, scoring over 100 points, and haven't lost at home since probably about 1961. So that it was always going to be a tough opening section. Sorry. But yeah, the performance against Norwich was bitterly disappointing, and I think Warnock expected better. Going into this weekend against West Brom, another tough test against another one of our ex-head coaches in Carlos Corberan. I expect West Brom to be solid. They do let you create chances. It's whether we can create them. That's the big thing. But I watched the game that Leeds had against West Brom, and they looked all right. Going to be another tough opponent. They expect to be high up in this division, even under the financial difficulties that they've had so far. But yeah, it's going to be a very, very difficult match, and I'm hoping, in my heart, I hope that we can win 2-1. But in my head, I see it being very difficult. And if we come away with anything but a draw, draw or a win, obviously. But if we manage to scrape a draw, I'll be happy with that. Obviously, transfer deadline day as when this podcast is going out. So we've heard today, as of Thursday, that there won't be any more signings. Neil's come out in the press conference and pretty much said that there will not be any more signings. It's very disappointing. I feel that we need at least two in a striker and possibly another midfielder, but definitely a striker, if not two strikers. But it doesn't look like we're going to get that. We've missed out on a number of targets for whatever reason. Another deal fell through at the weekend, and I think Warnock is very, very frustrated by the sounds of it, by his comments in the press conference. Hopefully, the lads will, discuss Warnock's comments after my section here. But I just feel I don't really know what's going on. I mean, there's clear areas that we needed to improve on, and this whole, we only want to sign better than what we've got. I agree with that, but to not sign anybody and then to just give Ward a 2-year contract is, it's a bit mystifying, really. When we knew last season we didn't score a lot of goals, we needed striking options, and in this league, if you don't score goals, you don't win games, like you don't in any football match. But particularly in this division, you've got to have that bit of quality, and I feel that we're just lacking that. We've brought Bergzog in, which is a nice addition, but again, we don't know a lot about him. He's got to settle into this country and this league, and it's going to be difficult for him. So yeah, I feel that if we don't get somebody in, it's not looking good at all, if I'm being completely honest. And Warnock seemed very frustrated with Kevin Nagel's tweet after the game on Saturday, saying that the performance wasn't good enough, which I accept it wasn't. But, obviously there is a bit of, there seems to be a bit of an intense atmosphere within the club, which is not good to see. And, I've pretty much accepted that it's been quite positive since Kevin took over, and I do think he wants to do the best for the club in the long term. He's got good long term ambitions, which I'm fully on board with. But to not bring in the required quality that we need to at least try and stay in this division at the moment. Yes, there's a whole season ahead, and we've got the January transfer window in 6 months' time, but that's 6 months away. There's a lot of games to be played between now and then, and yeah, people will say, well, you should be able to pick up wins in that time, but it's going to be so difficult. And the lack of transfer activity, to let 23 players go from the end of last season, whether they were on loan or not, to let 23 go and only bring 4 in, and 2 of them we had last season anyway. He's definitely a bit worrying. Anyway, good luck to the boys on the transfer deadline day special. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for Ryan Sparks coming on. If you haven't heard him yet, he might be after this segment, or he's been on before. But yeah, probably very interesting chat from Ryan. Gives an inside perspective of how transfer deadline day goes out. So I know Ryan personally. So thanks very much, mate, for coming on the show. Much appreciated. And it's going to be interesting to see what deals are done. Obviously, Saudi Arabia has had the Saudi League has had an impact on the way transfers are done in this country, for the amount, teams are now having to overpay because there obviously there's competition from the Saudi League that can pay that extra money. So you see like rumours of Cole Palmer going to Chelsea for £40 million from Manchester City when he's not hardly played a Premier League game properly. It's very, very mystifying what's going on in the football world at the moment. From a town perspective, there's not much. I suspect Jay will be quite happy at the end of this transfer window for Leeds United. Probably Jay will end up being the happiest. So good luck to all the other teams. I hope you get the business done that you want. I'm probably the most depressed on this podcast at the moment because of the deals that we haven't got done. We'll just see how everything pans out in the next couple of weeks or so. But good luck for everybody tomorrow. Good luck for everybody at the weekend. I hope you get the results that you're wanting. And have a good show. And see you next week. Cheers, lads. Up the town.
There we go. That was our Huddersfield Town correspondent, Steve Downs. Perfect timing. Jason Booker has joined us just to revel in the Huddersfield Town misery. We love that. But to be honest,
No, this isn't the Leeds United show.
Okay,
we don't love that.
I'm thinking it was one of mine and Jason's streams, wasn't it, again?
I think it's gonna turn out to be a Leeds United show the way transfers go in at the moment.
I think you're probably right, but we probably should touch on what Steve's had to say in that.
Yeah.
It's been a very, very tough week, hasn't it? When you look at the comments from Kevin Nagel on social media, which were then picked up by Neil Warnock in the press conference, factor in the fact that we have come to transfer deadline day. And apart from one little rumour of Charlie Wyke earlier on, I've seen very little about Huddersfield Town today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw what Kevin Nagel put on Twitter at the weekend after the game. Obviously, vented a bit unhappy with the manner of the 4-0 defeat to Norwich. But, this is the owner of the club. Does that need to be going out on social media? It's going to spark up, a furious reaction, which it did, which we expected. And, Warnock in his presser has reacted. And you wonder where it goes from here, really, don't you? You think I don't know if there's any way back, really, especially if they don't manage to get any signings in, and if they carry on losing football games, it's going to reach breaking point.
For me, I feel a little bit sorry for him, if I'm honest. Like, joking aside, I do feel a little bit sorry.
That's the ultimate, isn't it? When you've got pity for him, that's like the ultimate,
And I think I feel the same regardless of what club it were in the division, because I feel like they've just been a bit cut off at the kneecaps. Like that's a little bit how it feels. It feels like they're not playing on the same kind of playing field, even as the teams that would be expected to be around them. It just feels really wrong at the moment. I don't know whether it is FFP, whether it's just Kevin not wanting to spend, whether it's a mix-up in communication of what Warnock's expecting and then what the club are expecting, but just don't feel good, does it? Like, there's not many teams in the division, I think, towards the bottom that will be as worried as what I think they are right now.
Yeah. Charles here says, Warnock can literally say whatever he wants. He gets sacked, paid off, and goes back to life in Cornwall. I doubt he's bothered. I mean, apparently they've stretched the budget to even convince Warnock to return, haven't they? So they're already paying a high salary for Warnock to make him take the job in the first place after, what he did. He waved his magic wand last year and kept them up. I mean, Lewis, how do you see that kind of panning out between Warnock and Nagel going forward?
I mean, how long have you got? I mean, this week's, I think it's a really good tease into what could potentially happen. I think, let's take it right back to the beginning. They've been taken over by somebody who's, new to the club. He's still probably getting to grips with how the club, works, how it's run. Probably wants to put his own stamp on things, which is understandable because he's the owner of the club. He's done a tremendous job in convincing Warnock to give it another go. And I think your point, Steve, about Warnock waving that magic wand, I mean, not many of us, if any of us, had Huddersfield to stay up before he came in. You know, it was a miracle pretty much that we stayed up. So it's such a shame that that kind of feeling has changed quite significantly from the end of last season to where we are now. I think from their relationship, I think, yeah, you know, sometimes these things can happen. Sometimes it can be really healthy debate. Sometimes, you know, outside looking in, it might potentially not be healthy. But, you know, again, like I said last week, football fans are relatively fickle, a lot of us. If Huddersfield start winning games, it's quickly easily forgotten about, or it's going, you know what, it might just need declared in the air. If they start, you know, continue to, you know, not win, and let's be honest, they've got a fixture list which on paper they probably get into some of the games where they might potentially get, you know, a win from compared to the start. I honestly think they've had the toughest start in the Championship with the teams they faced. I'm absolutely convinced by that. But I think everything that's happening off the field, I think from Stephen's perspective, he's right. You know, 23 going, 4 coming in is a significant, you know, imbalance between it. But, you know, sometimes that's what managers want. They want to work with small squads, and even if the resources are potentially not what may have, you know, possibly been thought of at the beginning, Warnock's experienced enough. He's been around the block a long enough time to know that what he can get out of that team. And I never expected Huddersfield to be challenging for the playoffs. I expected him probably just to survive, and I think that'll still be their ambition. I think if they do that, I think that's still not a bad season at all for them. But it depends how that relationship is over that next 6 to 9 months. Warnock, let's be honest, has moved around from different clubs anyway. So in that guy's comments, I think he probably will be bothered because I think he's got Huddersfield. I think he has got it at the heart. He really does appreciate what Huddersfield have done in his career for him. That's why he's gone back. But there's always somebody to come in and replace the manager. You know, a manager isn't big enough, isn't bigger than the club, so they will find somebody. It depends how Kevin wants to run the club and how he sees that. You know, we'll want to be here in January. That's the biggest thing. And if it isn't, and if somebody else is in place in January, what resources do they get to keep town up?
Did Warnock not come in with Nagel taking over though, or was he in just before? They seemed to both happen at the same time. They had this takeover. Warnock seemed to come in at the same time. So I mean, even if Nagels doesn't know him personally, he must have people around him that'll say this is what Neil Warnock's about, and exactly what Lou's just said about him being, you know, he's been around the block and he's got years and years of experience. So the pair. Well, I wouldn't say the pair of them know one another. I mean, the owner must certainly know about Warnock and what he brings and his reputation. And I mean, he only needs to pick up Warnock's autobiography or listen to a podcast with a former player to find out what Warnock's about. It's not as if he's hiding what he's good at and the way that he operates and works and what's worked for him for all these years.
Is anybody watching the Huddersfield Town like mini documentaries that they're putting out on YouTube?
I saw the first one. I need to try and follow them on since.
Well, the second one is I've watched a few minutes of it, and it seems to be where they're recruiting Warnock, or there's a conversation between Nagel and Warnock, and it's all about they're both from working class backgrounds and they both work the socks off to get where they're at, etc., etc. So it's trying to kind of put that out there. But Jason, I mean, for me, we have just gone from an ownership group, and particularly a chairman who was very vocal on Twitter, tweeted out outbursts and getting those instant reactions out, and it didn't work in the end. Now Nagel has been very vocal on Twitter from the start, and of course when he bought the club, when he took it over, it was all positive stuff. You know, he stood at the local fish and chip shop and it's great publicity, but I always felt that there was a potential that if you're too vocal on social media like that, it's going to come back to bite you. Do you think that's what we're seeing now? I mean, did you have the same concerns really when you kind of saw that from him?
I just think it makes me cringe a little bit. Like, he's the owner of a professional football club. You know, you wouldn't see that in any other walk of life. And I know football's a little bit of a law to its own, but it's no different to, you know, the owner of Asda coming out and having a wrangle with somebody on social media about prices of beans. Like, it's crazy to me. And I used to think the same about Radrizzani was exactly the same. Some of the stuff, you know, it's the anniversary of Bamba Dieng today, isn't it? Like, Bamba Dieng and Cody Gakpo Day today, so we know it full well, and it doesn't benefit anybody. No. It just puts your neck on the line to get shot at, really. So I don't think there's any good coming from this. And Warnock, I think, has felt like he's got no option but to go out in the media and kind of almost defend his position and beliefs in what he thinks the club obviously need, which has then made this back and forward start happening between the two people that, even on certainly on the face of it, to fans, need to be more aligned than anybody. If them two are against each other, what hope do fans have turning up at 3:00 for a game? You know what I mean? So that's how I see it. I like I said, I think it's worrying. I think it's really, really worrying for Town.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Steve said on numerous occasions, he just wanted a kind of straightforward season, really. It didn't have to be any glory about it, but just kind of straightforward survival, a nice, calm season. But it seems to be anything but, to be perfectly honest. Bradford City, what do we think then? I mean, the general vibe with Bradford City at the moment, they brought a couple of signings in, today. I've texted a couple of my City mates and there's just doesn't seem to be that much enthusiasm. What do we think of those signings, Chris? What do you think?
Just a bit of a weird one before we skip away from Town. Have you seen that Andy Carroll signed for a second division team in France today?
No.
Sorry, no. Who? Where's he gone?
Amiens.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Amiens, yeah.
I did see that he'd released himself from his Reading contract because there was a clause in that he could activate if he wanted to leave. And I just assumed that he would rock up somewhere else in the AFL, to be honest. I'm guessing Amiens, is it the south of France? It's going to be a nice lifestyle, let's be honest. It's going to be better than Reading.
But again, like, we're talking about Town being desperate for a number 9.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
As if that won't make a lot of sense. And surely they could pay him enough to kind of attract him for a season. But I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to mention it because I thought it were a bit of a strange one. But maybe you're right. Maybe he's got a pad at south of France and he's in slightly nicer climates.
I don't know if you caught it at the start. I did make kind of my case for what I thought was the weirdest transfer I'd seen in this window in the last couple of days.
Yeah,
and that was Keenan Davis going to Udinese. Again, Keenan Davis would have been the perfect number 9 option to get on loan for a club like Town.
The only thing I'll say with that, and you might not have put the 2 and 2 together, maybe I'm putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5, but he was on loan at Watford, and Watford also own Udinese.
So they've been like, let's bring him in here. He was good at Watford. Let's bring him in.
Is that link still there? Is that link still going on between
Pozo family, isn't it? They're still on both clubs, yeah. So maybe that's it. I don't know that, but it makes sense.
God. By the way, what about Ansu Fati to Brighton, guys?
I were gonna bring it up later, but it makes my head hurt that Brighton. I mean, Brighton are obviously, they are probably the best run club in the country, from top to bottom. The way that they, operate is just unbelievable. But when you consider how far that club has come from League One, I remember us playing them down at the old Withdean. I was there when Fabian Delph scored that unbelievable goal when he ran the whole pitch and curled it in from 25 yards out. What an unbelievable rise. And then to be signing a player like Ansu Fati, it's just wild, isn't it? It's unbelievable.
It is pretty bonkers, isn't it? But this segues beautifully because the one man who has covered all the Premier League transfers for us on the show over the last year or so is Leeds United fan and Sporting Life's Tom Conduff. Thanks for joining us, mate.
No worries. I was worried that the word fatty and good link was included there.
Tom, is Sinistera staying or what? Put me out of my
It's just gone straight to it.
Yeah, talk about cut to the chase, Steve.
Do you want to hear what you want to hear? Or do you want the truth?
He's a goner.
Do we think?
Looking good. Yeah, it's a weird one. It's really is a weird deal. I don't particularly see what Leeds get out of it, but then the noise constantly all week really was the potential that Sinistera could go, but only on the provision that somebody else comes in. Obviously, we've not heard anything yet, but it would seem weird that they just break away from that, particularly to a club who have hijacked one of their deals, have taken one of their top players already to then loan them. Could you say best forward? Certainly an impact forward. Just seems a bit weird if there's nothing in it for Leeds. So still a few hours to go. So I don't particularly think that's all there is to that deal.
It still feels to me, Tom, like there's something in the background that we're not aware of as fans, which is fine. Like that's to be understood. But it feels to me like there is something in this contract situation still that's kind of lingering in and among, where the club are kind of balancing out, doing what's right for them, but also making sure they don't put themselves in sticky water legally. So I think it's probably more down that line. And I think it'll end up coming out that there'll be a sizable loan fee and an obligation to buy. That's what I think is going to be the kind of come out of this.
Yeah, it can't be a straight loan. There's got to be something involved in that. And maybe there was, as part of this contractual dispute, in a similar way to Tyler Adams, that his obviously contract, that clause had expired, but they still did the deal for a slightly higher price. Maybe there was kind of an agreement in there that it would happen. But again, it was always kind of asterisked alongside, as long as Leeds can find a replacement. So it seems slightly strange that it's happening this late.
Where do you think that leaves Leeds United going forward? Because obviously we had a brilliant kind of showing of that front four, what it could do last week against Ipswich. Where do you think it leaves Leeds going forward without Sinisterra? Does it take us possibly from not guaranteed promotion, but certainly fighting for those top two spots to maybe playoffs? Or how do you think it impacts the team overall?
It obviously impacts, but I think you've got to remember that in terms of the whole squad and the talent of a starting 11, I said it yesterday and I still agree with it now, that Leeds probably do have the best squad in the division, or the best starting 11, really, when you break it down to what they have. Because I mean, fundamentally, the starting four at Ipswich that scored 4 goals, the player that couldn't get in was Somerville. They've got a surplus of wingers and a surplus of talented attackers. And unfortunately, when you've got that and you're not in the Premier League, there's always a good chance somebody wants out. So it's obviously going to have some effect. And we've got to remember as well that Somerville's injury record has not been particularly great. So there's no guarantee he'd be available for 46 games this season anyway. Yeah, it's obviously a bit of a blow for Leeds, but I don't think it's the catastrophic impact on their promotion hopes when you consider the state of the rest of the squad at the moment, and the fact that they've still got an incredibly strong front four. At the moment, it's a luxury that one of them will have to sit out every week. Sinisterra goes. Somebody may come in. I think the kind of idea was that they wanted a more central number 10. That could still happen. Somebody has to sit out. So without Sinisterra, I suppose it solves the problem for them. So yeah, I don't think it's the massive, huge impact that potentially it might look like on paper.
I've been right objective with it, mate. Like I've expected this the whole window, and you know, even at the beginning of the week, Brownie, one where we were saying like it makes a lot of sense that somebody right at the end of the window will come in and put the money down that they need to take Sinisterra. He's too good for the Championship. Like we all know he's too good for the Championship, and I think Tom again is spot on. Like, yeah, it's sure I'm going to be gutted about losing a player as good as him, but we still got a richer of talent that is more than good enough to be challenging towards the top end of the Championship in that squad. You know, Somerville, Nonto, Rutter start, and you still got Dan James on the bench. Now, you can have your opinions on Dan James, but up until Ipswich, he was probably our best player in the first few games of the season. And he's still more than enough quality to help win games in the Championship. So hopefully we can get somebody in through the door before the end of the window. But if we don't, for me, in that area of the pitch, I think we've got more than enough anyway. I think it's, for me, the disappointment today will be not getting a left back. But
yeah, what do you think with the left back situation, Tom? I mean, it seems crazy. It kind of rumbles on, but are they back in Firpo, do you think?
This is a long-term Leeds United problem.
Yeah.
We've been talking about Tom for about 6 years.
Exactly. So what is the point in starting now? Except that you're never going to sign a left back. You'll have one for 5 years and then that's it. Yeah, I guess you kind of look at priority areas of the squad and, you know, what needed to happen, where needed to improve. If you kind of were realistic on the profit and sustainability rules and stuff like that, which are quite tight. If the option was 2 centre midfielders, you know, or what Leeds have done particularly now, And the result would be that you'd probably just have to go with what you have at left back, which is obviously Firpo, Byram. I think he thinks Shackleton could play there as well. Strike's the left footer, so you could push him across. You're probably going to go for the centre midfield. So yeah, it's been a constant crisis position for Leeds, hasn't it? So
I don't get it.
We've got this far. Why start now?
I don't get it, Tom. Like you go out and you make the acquisition of somebody like Perot in a position that we desperately needed. You do the same at right back with a player like Jed Spence. You go out and get a player like Ampadu. You improve the central defence so much with a player like Joe Rodon, and then you leave that position so weak, in my opinion. And, if Sam Byram didn't have an injury record, I could make peace with the fact that we'd play in an inverted fullback, a right back that's adapted his game to play left back. But we know that Byram's going to get 15, 20 games tops. Like he's missed 70% of all available games, I think, for the last 2 seasons. Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand it.
Just hope Firpo's fit for the other 25, and if they can work it out between them and sync up their injury records, no problem.
Junior Firpo, Tom.
Look at him. You're literally melting Jason's head here.
Just not a footballer. He's not a footballer. I refuse to believe it. He's just
the one. Go on. Are you going to go where I was going to go?
Moving away from Leeds, because I know we haven't got Tom for all night like us guys.
Oh, one more on Leeds. Go for it, Chris. Go for Gnonto, because all of a sudden Twitter is exploding again with Gnonto and Everton. I don't think Sinistero might be the only one to leave looking at this. I'm seeing.
Don't go to bed just yet.
It's not happening.
I've just seen exactly the same, Chris.
Oh, please. Yeah. Not Everton. Anyone but Everton.
Confidently predict he will not be going to Everton.
They haven't got the money. They haven't got the money.
That's basically it. There is no.
Is there not something in this though? Iwobi's obviously on to Fulham for 22 mil. No pace on his way back to Brentford, allegedly, even if it's a loan deal with a fee. Surely there should be the resources there for Gnonto.
Where's the
Everton though are in a situation where they can't just sell player, use entire funds to then fund another player. It's kind of, I presume if the funds were there for Gnonto, Sinistero would be saying. So I think, I can't see that happening.
Famous last words, Tom. Right, go on, Brown.
Yeah, we'll wait until 11 o'clock and then just get me back on and I'll apologise.
I'm just going to kind of move it on to the Premier League and everything that's been going on. I mean, it feels like one of the most bonkers windows. I don't know if it's because of obviously the Saudi Arabia situation as well. I mean, just putting it out there, Tom, if you were Liverpool, you get a £200 million offer for Salah. Would you take it?
Yeah, I think, because that's insane money, isn't it?
For a 31-year-old especially.
Yeah, I guess it's tough for Liverpool, isn't it? That I guess with the midfield rebuild this summer, there's probably some belief maybe they're in a title race, but frankly, are they close to Man City again? Probably not.
No.
And even if they don't have time to source a suitable replacement this window, there's enough in that forward line that you just try and get through even this season and then reassess next summer, because that's a hell of a lot of money for the 31-year-old. And, they've still got another 2 weeks, Saudi Arabia, 2 and a bit weeks, so this isn't going away. You just know full well that the kind of bonus good news for Fabrizio Romano and transfer journalists, so that you've got another 2.5 weeks of this. But I think there's got to be a time where finances come into it over football, and that is an insane amount of money for a player.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. What did you make of we referenced it earlier, obviously, but Fatty to Brighton? I mean, that is one to me where it's like, if that was on Championship or Football Manager, I'd be closing the save down going, it's too unrealistic.
It's remarkable, isn't it? I think it shows exactly where Brighton are. I mean, Brighton, frankly, are one of the best teams in the country. If we're being honest, the way they're going, the fact that De Zerbi came in and not just a continuation under Potter, but the fact they thrived under him as well. And it just shows the situation they're in. I do find it slightly weird that I think that Mohamed Kudus, who's then gone to West Ham, part of the reason that his deal to Brighton fell through were wages. I think there was a release clause in there as well. But then they're paying Fatty about twice as much as Lallana gets, who's the highest earner, which seems a bit odd. But it's a phenomenal sign. It just shows where Brighton are at the moment and the fact that how trusted they are with young talent as well. I know Barcelona have got their issues, but this is a player who is all the potential to be genuinely world class in the future. And it shows that, they've shown it with their own track record and their South American youngsters that keep popping up constantly throughout the team, throughout the year, that they can just develop players and continue doing it. It is an absolutely mad signing. And like you say, it's a bit like a few of us, really. I think today it's getting a bit Football Manager in about 3 years' time when you're into your days, and it gets a bit weird, and you start to doubt yourself if you should carry it on.
You're absolutely right, but me as a teenager would never have imagined the sentence anywhere. Brighton are one of the best teams in the country. It's true though. It's absolutely true, but it's absolutely insane because Jay made the point earlier. I remember Brighton being a League Two side at the Withdean, not having this production line of talent, plucking gems from South America and like Enciso and Buenanotte and stuff, and it's insane.
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's also kind of testament, as you touched there, to their scouting network and an understanding of. I mean, Tony Bloom's a genius, right? You don't make all your money gambling if you're not some kind of genius. So they've obviously known that there'd be regulation changes in terms of rules coming in, pretty much post-Brexit and all the stuff that kind of the way you registered players. They've absolutely taken advantage of it and the ability to really kind of bring in players on the worldwide scale as they have done. So, yeah, it's remarkable. And the scary thing is they're probably only just going to get better. They're just better and better.
I don't think there's a comparable club to them. I think the only club that I can kind of think of that is similar is Dortmund. In the way that they kind of produce this conveyor belt of talent that they bring in, nurture, and then sell on. Like, they're just phenomenal.
Well, this leads to Charlie's comment here. He says, Tom, have you heard that Brighton are estimated to be around 2 years ahead of other clubs in terms of the AI recruitment aspect?
They're definitely ahead in terms of how they kind of recruit. You've got to look at kind of Tony Bloom's own background and the way, the kind of gambling firm and stuff like that, and the use of advanced metrics in football before they were widely available. I mean, his company, was it him and Benham at Brentford, absolutely, really kind of built something that made them a fortune to do so. So they've brought it into their recruitment as well. And it's not a surprise then to see that players that we'll have never heard of, have never seen, that they will have full-on scouting reports, folders and folders and documents on this player that nobody else can get. And it's all down to the ownership structure and kind of the work ethic that he's brought into that club. And they are absolutely taking advantage of it now.
They'll have dossiers on South American kids that haven't been born yet. That's how far ahead they are.
Yeah, there'll be something. There'll be something of like, right, okay, we've got this lad playing for an under-9s team somewhere, and we reckon that in 3 years it's our time to go because he's going to be ready, and he'll make his debut at 14.
And then Chelsea put a bid in for like 80 million.
Basically Chelsea fund Brighton's model as well. It's remarkable. Yeah. They just scout players, get them cheap, sell them to Chelsea for 2,000 times their price or worth or whatever at the time. It's a remarkable model.
Meanwhile, Chelsea get rid of all their homegrown talent. They sell all them.
And then sign everybody else's homegrown talent. I mean, I was going to come to this. To be fair, it moves as nicely on with deadline day. Obviously we saw Cole Palmer yesterday, who was a City kid turn up at Chelsea. Meanwhile, Chelsea, and this is one of the strangest ones for me, Forest, I think, have got a bargain, 8 million for Callum Hudson-Odoi. When Chelsea turned down, was it 40 to 50 million only 3 years ago from Bayern Munich?
Yeah, I think it's kind of hindsight, a lot of it, isn't it? That obviously I think he wanted to go and play football consistently, then all the transfer dealings that come with that. It is an interesting one, but again, it's kind of Forest signed so many players. Obviously, they're about to lose Brennan Johnson as well shortly.
Yeah.
So they signed so many players that at what point, how much can you guarantee that everyone's going to get the right amount of playing time to continue what they're doing? There's no guarantee Hudson-Odoi goes there and becomes a starter. I mean, after Xabi Alonso came in at Leverkusen, he couldn't quite nail down a starting spot throughout his entire loan spell there. So that's an interesting one. And Cole Palmer to Chelsea is, again, it's to do with the FFP and if you kind of sell homegrown players and the buffer zone you get with that and things like that. But that's an absolutely remarkable one in that it's rare that all parties or both clubs think they've got a good deal. Chelsea think they've got a good deal. Man City think they've got a good deal. So, it'll be an interesting one to see unfold. And, I mean, frankly, he should probably get more playing time at Chelsea than he does at Man City, even with that army of players, just because you know what Pep's like when it comes to picking his kind of forwards and leaving them to it.
It seems quite a similar sign, though, for Chelsea in terms of you go back 12 months when they picked up Carney Chukwuemeka from Villa, who now, under a little bit under Potter and start of this season, has looked to be getting games. Surely it's now just direct competition for him, though, with another lad that, to be fair, he'll know from the under 21 setup.
Yeah. There's obviously a reason why he's done it. I mean, they probably saw Jeremy Doku come in and thought, because particularly after Mahrez was going, you felt that this was the year for Palmer, right? That this was going to be his time to break in. Even last season, to be fair, you thought maybe he'd probably get more of a look in than he did in terms of starts and stuff like that. So, yeah, maybe it is just for him thinking that there is probably a bit more of an opportunity there than there is at Man City. But it's going to be an interesting one to follow because he's clearly an incredibly talented player. And even for Man City, this season he's shown it. So, yes, definitely one to watch.
Can I just say as well, former Leeds player Calvin Phillips, obviously, I thought there would be so much more noise about him. I mean, he seems absolutely determined to make it work at Manchester City, and they seem absolutely determined not to use him. What's going to... Yeah, I mean, he's 27, 28 now. I mean, you just feel like he's got to move, surely. But I'm really surprised nobody's tried to do anything.
I did hear a couple of weeks ago a really weak rumour, I think, on TalkSport. So, again, says it all. But about Liverpool allegedly being interested. But obviously they've now gone for Gravenberch.
Yeah, I think usually players take a year, don't they, to kind of settle in at Man City to Pep Guardiola's way. So this was meant to be the year that, okay, he's going to get more game time, and he still might. They've still not played in any other competitions. So we'll wait and see. I think the issue he's got is that even when he went to Man City, people saw big money, but a big money signing at Man City is not the same as a big money signing at, I don't know, a West Ham or a Fulham or someone like that, who instantly then will play every single week. He's competing with the best defensive midfielder in the world, in Rodri. He's not going to get in and play regularly. So we'll wait and see. But I think it's a case of that. I don't know how much Pep wanted him. Was it a case of Man City have seen an opportunity to get an England international?
Yeah.
Frankly, England's best player, was it at the Euros? A player that has really excelled for the national team. They obviously had an eye on Declan Rice as well. Maybe there was a long-term plan to have those two together in midfield. So I'm not sure how much Pep really wanted him, and kind of working with him now, maybe he's just not too sure that, that it's the one.
I think with Calvin as well, like he's such a home bird, isn't he? Like he won't want to move far away from home either. Like I genuinely think it'll play a part in his decision making because he's already on the max amount of money that he's going to be on. He's winning trophies, he's winning titles, he's still staying in the England squad. So like, what is the big desire to move? Sure, to play as much first team football as possible, but where is he then going to go and do that for the level of money that he's on?
Yeah, I guess as well that. We'll wait and see. They've still got to play in the Cups. They've still got Champions League. I mean, Pep typically used the Champions League as a rotation, which is probably why they never won it for years. But in the group stage particularly, he kind of just would have players bring in it and play games in the Champions League. Phil Foden was a great example. Could not play in the Premier League whatsoever, but would play seemingly every Champions League game for a few years. So, yeah,
and they have basically been handed a Europa League group.
Oh, God, yeah. It's, I mean... Brighton on that topic, unbelievable group for them. But yeah, there's going to be so much opportunity for City to rotate in Europe that Calvin, again, if that doesn't happen, then you've got to be asking the question in January if you want to go and play that, I don't know with the national team though, because you see him, you see Jordan Henderson as well.
Harry Maguire,
a big one, because
this is what I was going to ask you, Tom.
Yeah,
exactly. Ask at that point of in terms of you got Calvin Phillips and Maguire. We've seen Johnny Evans move permanently now to Man United. So where does that put Maguire in the pecking order? We've also got to probably factor in Ivan Toney as well. So when it comes to those Euros and the England squad, there potentially could be 3 or 4 players who've not kicked a ball for a long, long time, which is a bit of a worry, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think Southgate. I mean, Sterling's the interesting one that potentially he was the one that. Southgate would always pick players on who perform for England and, kind of I know they can perform for me, so I'm quite happy to keep them, regardless of what they're doing at the club level, which people then bring up the quote that he said about the fact that you've got to be playing well at your club to get into the England team and so on. And then Sterling got dropped and we thought, okay, maybe the attitude is changing somewhat. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the thing for Calvin as well. As long as he keeps performing for England, he'll probably keep his spot in the team. It feels like him and Rice together that Southgate really likes it as a partnership. And then it's the Jordan Henderson or the other role that's available potentially in midfield that's more up for grabs. So, yeah, I think as long as he keeps performing for his country, probably still going to start. Then he's in an all right spot. Again, it's probably just if he doesn't play any European, any cup games at City, any Luton at home type Premier League games, then he'll probably start thinking that it's not worked out. And City, to their credit, do typically sell players when they're not in favour. So there is always going to be an opportunity.
I'm going to say transfer deadline already now, but are we thinking January might be a little bit more busier than usual with the Euros coming up and people potentially like Phillips maybe moving on, and it has a domino effect across other clubs?
I think it's just getting more and more ridiculous. Like, I know we touched upon it earlier, but it's just like, I don't know if it is Saudi Arabia. I just don't know what it is. I think it's potentially kind of Chelsea big spending more, and then other teams feel like they need to react or what. But it's definitely going to have a knock-on effect just in that, you've got kind of teams like Forest who've come into the league who are recruiting heavily and will continue to recruit heavily at every available opportunity. Aston Villa, Brighton, obviously Newcastle have just broken into that picture as well. Teams there who genuinely feel that they can challenge the established top six. And then there's kind of like Man United, who will probably get swallowed up a little bit. If there's one team to get knocked out of it, it's probably them at the moment. So January's just going to be as chaotic as it is because there's so many factors that go into it. I'm still waiting for today, though, what we'd call ridiculous transfer. I don't know if you discussed it already, but there's always one on deadline that you get close to it. So we're waiting to see that one.
There is still time for that, isn't there?
Just on Elias Share. Leicester were keen but needed outgoings, and Leeds emerged late and prepared to meet 6 million asking price, but QPR were reluctant. Were always reluctant to sell and stuck to their guns, given the late nature of the deal, to find a replacement. Don't know how reliable that is, but
I think this is the problem, isn't it? When you try to do any business this late, that teams have got their own replacements. It's like buying a house, right? You can't do it until they've bought a house and they've bought a house, and there's a huge chain on it and a knock-on effect, and
And let's be honest, if QPR lost the Elias Chair, then Ainsworth really would be screwed.
Oh yeah, just play the game, accept you're getting relegated, and let everyone else have your best players. I think that's the honest thing to do.
I can't believe nobody snapped him up earlier for £6 million.
Yeah, I think obviously it's bizarre, to be fair, Leeds and how their squad is as good as it is now, because the clauses and stuff like that, they effectively couldn't start doing their business till mid-August. So they've done really well to get the quality of player. Like Joel Pirro, I was amazed that he was still available.
I couldn't believe we'd actually done that deal, to be honest. Because we have got a Newcastle United fan on the stream as well. Tom, what do you make of how they go about business? Because obviously Tonali, fantastic signing. How do you fancy Newcastle for this season?
Oh, you've got to continue fancying them to do well. I think the thing that probably most kind of impressive in terms of how they spend the money available is that, remember when it first happened and everyone was talking Mbappe and all the silliness that kind of came with that, and they're going to do this, they're going to do that. They've kind of thought, no, actually, let's think about this and let's build a spine as they did originally. They built the spine of a team that they did, and then they can complement around it, and we'll address position by position. And that was obviously the main thing that you look at. Was it the January they did? Like Chris Wood, they didn't need Chris Wood, but they knew Burnley needed him more than they did. So you take it off, you've got a striker there who will fundamentally do the cliche, do a job for you. But really impressive how kind of sensible they've been. They've seen opportunities come up. They've taken the opportunities. And the fact that existing players have really thrived under Howe and the better players around. I mean, Almiron's probably the big one there. Joe Willock's as well. Joe Willock's been phenomenal, really, in the last season or so. Yeah, mightily impressive. And again, if they're not in that top four picture, they'll probably be disappointed because, as we've said, some of the established bigger teams have got a lot more problems than Newcastle have. And even in the Champions League, and even in that, they'll still feel like they're the underdogs.
Yeah, I mean, great point here from Charles as well. I felt exactly the same when I saw Newcastle's draw. Did the Leeds among you have a wry smile like me when Newcastle drew PSG, Dortmund and AC Milan? It took me back to our draw 22 years ago. By the way, Leeds United had to go through 2 group stages.
Yeah, I tell that to everyone.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Can you imagine 2 group stages? I don't know how long the Champions League kept that format up for, but we had to go through 2 group stages to get to the quarterfinals.
I like
the good old days, eh, Steve? The good old days.
I like it as a group for Newcastle. Same with Brighton in the Europa League. I think there's got to be a case of I mean, my mate's a Brighton fan, so we're chatting to him about it, and it's kind of like, what do you want? And there's a bit of a mixed ground, isn't there, where you want a traditional big European club, but you want a group that you can get through. But then you kind of have to go, well, we haven't waited this long to get into Europe to be playing complete random teams in Europe that you go, I'll go because it's the Champions League. But really, you want to be playing a PSG, Milan, teams like that historically have got a lot about them in Europe. And that's why you qualify for it. That's why you qualify it, to play these teams and to see what you can do.
They are going to be remarkably special games. So, to be honest, we're both in the case of for Newcastle. Those games at St James's Park, those midweek nights under the lights, are going to be fantastic. For the atmosphere is going to be great. Also for Brighton, the fact they've got Ajax and Marseille, two great sides to go to. The away days for Newcastle and Brighton fans there are brilliant, absolutely superb.
I think they're the exact groups you want.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I would have picked if I were a Newcastle fan. 100%.
Yeah, I think that's what. That's what we. Yeah, no, I think we did. Absolutely, we did. You've got. If you're in Champions League, you've got to face the best, haven't you? And I think from our perspective, it is the glory days of when we were in Barcelona and Tino Asprilla getting his hat-trick. It was all that kind of nostalgia.
Yeah.
But when you've got the likes of Dortmund, PSG, and AC Milan, you've got the story about Tonali going back. You've even got the story about Isaac going back to Dortmund. You've got the whole PSG, circle going around there. And from a Newcastle perspective, we're kind of willing enough living that dream, but we're also pretty realistic that we actually probably do stand a chance of getting out of that group. I think what really intrigues me about that is how we manage a lot of them games and what players are going to be playing in them certain situations that I'm seeing at the moment. We're potentially linked with a late loan move for Hugo Lloris, which is interesting. Yeah, that's a very odd one. But I think from the way we play, at Newcastle, we're very on the front foot, very aggressive, real high press. And in Europe, sometimes it can be a little bit different. So, it will be really interesting to see how when we adapt and also teams adapt against us. But, it's absolute glory days for us to be in a Champions League. And imagine if we did get through that group, people will be just, the heads will explode with just expectation, ambition.
The bookies have you down as the second favourites to win the group, I saw the other day.
Well, it'd be amazing if we did. I think one big plus for us, and I know you said it's going to be great nights for UA fans. It absolutely is. I think from Eddie Howe and the management team are going to be really happy that actually they've not got a lot of distance to travel. The games are going to come real thick and fast. We talk about that turnaround in Europe where teams might potentially struggle in the first season getting into Europe. But let's be honest, trips to Dortmund and Paris and Milan are not far away nowadays. So when you're coming back to play on Sunday nights, your recovery is going to be not far off from what it might already be. And let's be honest, would you rather play a team like an AC Milan or like that rather than a very potential substandard, average European team? So, yeah, I'm delighted. I think it's great for us, and I think that's what a lot of us Geordies wanted. We wanted a real tough group, and actually, how good are we, and what do we need to get better? There's areas in that team where we probably do need an improvement. But also, kind of highlighting them aspects. You've got likes of Dan Burn, Sean Longstaff, proper Geordies who have a heart on the sleeve. It's a dream come true for them people to play in a European night under the lights at St James's. I'd absolutely love to be there. I think the atmosphere will be unbelievable. It'll absolutely be rocking. I think you'll hear it from West Yorkshire, to be fair.
I think that that group, AC Milan aren't what they were. No way. They're just obviously a name now. And Dortmund, I tell everyone that Dortmund, tonight is the perfect example. They are what I call the German version of Tottenham. They are the German Tottenham. You could not trust them to do anything whatsoever.
How did they not win the league last season?
They completely threw it away on the last day, remarkably. Tonight, they've played Heidenheim, just promoted to the Bundesliga. They were 2-0 up at half-time. They've drawn 2-2 somehow at home. I think Newcastle will be slightly disappointed in a weird way if they don't go through that group.
Tom, just before you leave, because I know you've got to shoot off in a couple of minutes, we always like to have a chat with you about fantasy football as well.
Yes.
Any tips or hints going forward? We've got a little league with it. We'll send you the code for it, mate, to get involved in that. Lewis is currently topping that with his bus stoppers. I'm in second. Any tips for me so I can leapfrog Lewis and get to that number one spot again?
Chuck him off now. Come on, Tom. Your time's up, mate.
I'm currently sitting 39,000th. Overall, so that's not bad. So
that is pretty good going.
Wow. I had Matty Cash from the start, so that helped last week, didn't it? Nice. That was fluky. There are a few. I think the big thing is don't get carried away with kind of the bargain buys that particularly come, with the transfer window. And this season, I've kind of just focused on my starting 11. I mean, it helps that Cameron Archer moved and players like that they'll probably be playing. But don't get drawn into that too much. Would probably the biggest thing that I've tried to learn this season with it, that people see like players go and Cole Palmer's going, oh look, he's only 5 million and this, that, and Nakamba's 4 million and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, yeah, but you're better off just going and piling your money in the big hitters, because they are big hitters for a reason. I do think João Pedro starts playing for Brighton. I think he's probably had time to integrate into that side. I know he was an incredibly popular pick. He's well worth keeping the faith in at 5.5 million, because he's now had time to kind of understand the tactical systems and things like that. I don't really know. There's a few other players that kind of been on my long list, but yeah.
What do people do with Salah? The Salah money when he goes to Qatar in 10 days' time? Saudi Arabia.
Well, I've got him, so I was just going to worry about that when it came to it. To be brutally honest,
one of those. It's going to ruin fantasy football for everyone. Apart from, we've already got Haaland's on the highest ownership in fantasy football history.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. If they do go, Aston Villa are your team post international break. Moussa Diaby's the one. I kind of looked at him in pre-season. I didn't bring him in. Basically plays as a striker for Villa, regardless of the system. Him and Watkins, he basically getting a midfielder who plays there. So let me have a look.
I think Sterling. I think it's time to bring Raheem Sterling back into the fold.
He's been brilliant so far.
Yeah,
their fixture list is really kind. What I will say on Villa, if you look at the FDR, fixture difficulty rating, Villa after Liverpool this week, post-international break, they don't play anyone rated 4 or 5 until they play Man City on the 5th of December. So Villa's run a fixture. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of their 10 after that are against teams rated 2.
Look at Lewis sat there quietly stroking his beard like some kind of...
It's almost like you're giving my trade secrets away, because I don't know if he's blind up. But, Villa could absolutely bomb it being in Europe, so that's my hope.
Yeah, Alex Moreno's one to watch, actually, for Villa when he's back from injury. He was really, really good last season, second half, left back. You've seen the attacking output of Matty Cash. Alex Moreno, when he's fit again, can easily match that. And I think, even as well as Dini's played, I think once he's fit, he comes in, because, frankly, he's their best left back.
Yeah, fair enough. Tom, pleasure as always to have you on, mate. And do get in touch, drop us a message if you do find that absolutely ridiculous deadline day transfer for us.
I'll tweet you if it comes out. Andy Carroll. Have we discussed Andy Carroll from the French Second League? So that's definitely up there. So if you can top that, that'd be great.
Also, just seen that Kasper Schmeichel allegedly today had his contract. Yeah, he's been released by Nice, so he could make a magical return to England somewhere.
Back to Leicester.
He could crop up somewhere, couldn't he? He could crop up. We'll keep an eye out.
By the way, Tom, squeezing the last one, I promise. What happens? Why does we end up signing players at 4 a.m. when the transfer deadline ends at 11? What's going on there? Is it just paperwork? Is there
you can. I don't know the exact point, but as long as you're advanced enough in a deal, you can get extra time. And then you got to remember a lot. Sheet. Yeah, the deal sheet that you'll hear a lot of, and then Sky Sports News at 11:01 p.m. will go, there's 6 deal sheets in with the Premier League. We don't know who 2 of them are. So that gives you an extra 2 hours, and then there is kind of the ins and outs of it and stuff like that, and then just announcements themselves. I don't know how bothered teams are when you're announcing a player at 4 a.m. if you can be bothered to actually do a video or just go, look, he's here, go to bed. But a lot of the time it is that the 11 o'clock isn't a hard deadline. As long as you're advanced enough in a deal, they do give you extra time to actually get it over the line and complete it and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Leeds United are definitely putting some tweets out of the don't go to bed yet ilk later on. Guaranteed.
Yeah, I tell you what, you'll probably know this, but I only found this out the other day. The player, does anyone know who the player was when Leeds tweeted that?
Was it a loan out? Was it someone going out on a loan?
It ended up being Matt Smith, didn't it?
No, they were actually signing someone that day and it fell through.
Yeah. I don't know who the player was that we were signing, but we ended up then selling Matt Smith the same bloody
that was it. Yeah.
Who was the player that was meant to come in?
The player was Leonardo Pavoletti, who then went on to play for the Italian national team. So what could have been? Played for Napoli as well. He got a big move to Napoli not long after. What could have been, hey?
Wow.
So Your
There
you
useless
go.
trivia for the day of who the don't go to bed just yet tweet was about.
Oh, but ending on the perfect trivia though for deadline day. So Tom,
There you
thanks
go.
up for coming on, joining us, mate.
No
Thank you,
worries.
Tom.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers,
See you later.
Tom. That's
There we
Sporting Life's
go.
Tom Carnduff.
So Leeds United.
Had to be a sting in the tail. Had to be a sting in the tail. Dave, I reckon if you had to pick a championship club, I reckon it'd be Leeds, wouldn't it? I think you've got a bit of a glint in your eye when you talk about Leeds United. I think you like Leeds a little bit.
We had this
I
discussion last week, and Plymouth just got plucked out of the air randomly that I should just follow Plymouth, who have welcomed a player called Mustafa. I'm just seeing.
Wow.
Oh, look at this. Dave's all over
He's involved.
Plymouth. He's involved now. All over Plymouth's Twitter
First
account.
time he's checked anything above,
Halifax.
Have you seen Paulina's being sent back to Fulham? Everything agreed.
Bundesliga window closes, didn't it, at 5?
Yeah,
or something?
everything agreed. Both medicals done, pictures in the shirt, and all the rest of it. But Fulham have been unable to get a replacement in time, so they've said,
"What's this
no.
double medical?" By the way, I've never heard of that. Like 2 medicals. Why?
I mean, to be fair to Fulham, I think it's absolutely right that they pulled the plug on this because, I mean, for a start, Palhinha's quality, and obviously if they can't replace him, it's a massive loss. Here's the thing for me though. Why have Manchester United in particular spent so much time chasing Amrabat and obviously finally getting him today on loan when Palhinha could have been there for the taking all along? Because for me, Palhinha is a far better player at what he does in a similar role than Sofiane Amrabat.
I think he's an absolute class act, mate.
He's class,
Palhinha.
yeah.
I think he's absolutely levels. He's in that position, the way that he carries the ball, his strength, like everything. I think he's top player. He could play for any team in the world for me. Really,
I'm surprised. Like, look at Nunes going to Man City. I'd have taken Palhinha instead.
Yeah. I don't get that one. I don't get it at all. Palhinha. Not Palhinha. Sorry, Nunes. I don't get it at all.
So what have we got? We've got about an hour and a quarter left of the deadline day of the transfer window.
What's happening with Leeds? What is going on?
I was about to say, Stephen J. is just hitting me afresh like more times than he's changed.
I'm just scrolling through. I've got Sky Sports ticker open. I've got all sorts going on. I'm telling you right now, by the looks of it, Sinistera's medical has happened. Everything's done. There is a replacement that we're waiting for. That's what I think.
I hope so.
The
lad at Roma.
Yeah,
I think he's already gone to Olympiacos, been spotted in Greece today. So yeah, I think that one's a no-go. But I that's what I think, because everything that's kind of come out is Sinistera wants to move, Bournemouth want to move, all the rest of it, but there's no agreement from Leeds as of yet to allow the deal to go over the line. So we'll say, I think they want the lad from Celtic, don't they? They want O'Reilly. O'Reilly's the one they want.
Any chance of that though? Is there any chance of that even happening though?
Everybody's got a price.
It'd be unbelievable if it did. But
top signing.
Yeah. Christ, blimey. Yeah, not
Josh
sure
Timon's just left Stoke as well, but I can't find where he's gone.
I was going to say where to though, because he's a decent lad. He's Josh Timon.
Yeah.
Good lad, like the next solid championship. Is it Huddersfield? Probably not. Sorry, Steve, if you're watching.
Can you imagine what he'd been saying now, Steve?
How would you guys, Steve, Jason, kind of rate your transfer window at the moment? Because I know obviously there seems to be, obviously all the loans have gone out, but you seem to have recruited relatively sensibly, quite acutely as well.
You go first, Steve.
Yeah,
so I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm really, really impressed with what we've done. I think they were given such a bad hand from previous ownership in terms of contract deals. And I know a lot of people said, look, the 49ers were there at the table when these contracts were drawn up, and we don't know. We don't know who sat in it. We don't know if Parag Marath, who's been on the board for a number of years, who's now our chairman, head of the consortium, we don't know how much he knew about these contracts. But whatever way you look at it, they had a bad hand to work with. Like Tom said, we couldn't do any of our deals till mid-August because we're waiting to see what happens. And then the dominoes start to fall and you lose 6, 7, 8 players on loan. So you lose majority of your squad. But the signings have brought in, they're all of a profile. You look at Ampadu, you look at Jed Spence, Pirro, Rodon. For me, that's exceptional business for what we've paid. I mean, when they got Pirot done, I couldn't believe it. I was away on holiday with no Wi-Fi, and I was getting drip fed updates about what was happening with Pirot. I couldn't believe that they actually did it. You know, Leeds fans have been screaming out for years to do the sensible thing, make the sensible acquisitions. You know, we've been crying out for a striker for years.
Though, is it?
No,
that's not the Leeds way.
No, it isn't. You know, we've been screaming out for this for years. The only thing for me really is the left back situation. Like Jason has said earlier, you know, it's bizarre that you've basically bolstered every area of your squad. Even if we lose Sinisterra, we've still got a lot of attacking talent, but you're leaving this one gaping area on the field, and wing-backs are so key in today's game. I just don't understand, because from what we've seen from Firpo for the last 2 years, he's just not it at all. He's just not it. And I don't feel like he's going to come back into the team and be a different player. I really don't. So I would give it probably an 8 out of 10, you know, considering the players we've lost because of previous contracts and just the quality of players they've managed to bring in. So I've got to be happy with it overall, unless Sinisterra and Nonto leave, you know, then it's we'll see. But yeah, I'm happy with it, to be honest, with what we've done, the majority of it anyway.
The club said, didn't they, that they, you know, they were. It was as important to keep some of these better players as it was to get good players in through the door. And when they said, you know, talking about that, they're talking about the likes of Sinisterra, Nonto, Somerville. And at the moment, we have kept the best of them, because the players that have all gone, we didn't want any of them anyway. I think the only player that we kind of would have been happy to keep would probably have been Rodrigo. Out of the whole group, I think he'd have probably been the only one, and maybe Tyler Adams. But we didn't have him for the last 4 months of the season anyway. So I think, you know, overall, I think the window's been exceptional for us. And yeah, if we get to the deadline and we've still got Sinisterra and Nonto in, I think you can't score it any less than an 8. We've got arguably the best right back in the league come in. I think there's an argument for Rodon being one of the best centre-backs in the league. I think there's an argument to say for Ampadu being one of the best centre midfielders in the league. And then some of the attacking talent that we've got, along with obviously bringing Pirot in. I mean, Pirot is the best striker left after Gyökeres went. You can have your opinion on who's better out of the two, but the fact is Gyökeres had already gone. Yeah, Gyökeres. You pronounce it like that, right?
I'm just saying I think he's better than Pirot, but I do.
Oh, you think? Yeah.
I do really like Pirot, to be fair.
I think that's fair, but what I'm saying is I think it'd have been an opinion either way. But the ones that were left, we'd gone and signed the best striker in the division. So, you know, what the 49ers have done really is everything they promised. And they've kept us all waiting. And if we'd have listened to them properly rather than just reacting emotionally like fans, we'd have just taken them at the word. But because we've been hoodwinked for a few years by Rads and Orta, we you know, we're PTSD scarred, aren't we? Like we're just like, oh, we can't relax with it. But they said that this would be the case. They said that this was going to be the you know, the way that they conducted the business. And right now, we do sit probably too short. But every single championship team will be a couple short minimum. You know, yeah, we do desperately need a left back to give ourselves that proper balance, and we do really need a 10. And Mary were clearly the player that we wanted in that role. We've then gone out and tried to get O'Reilly this week. But you know what? We have got players that can fill that spot at 10 in Somerville, Pirot, Rutter. You know, like between them, it's interchangeable anyway. The left back spot for me, we don't have one. I'm not having the Firpo argument. He's not it for me. But you know what? We come out of it. We're going to the rest of the season with only one real glaring problem at left back. Can't be too unhappy with that.
No.
In terms of where you are now, then both of you, it's say obviously you keep Nonto and potentially Sinisterra or either go, and the backing up we've given Farke in this crazy football world we're living in. Does Farke get slightly under pressure if results don't that going away?
It's interesting because I think the way he's conducted himself has just been exemplary. I think the way he's handled this summer, what he said about Nonto, Sinisterra, how he's handled everything has been absolutely perfect. But I think you bang on. I think if results didn't happen, I think there would be that pressure, that spotlight would be on him. I don't think it's a Norwich situation where he can have a kind of, you know, so-so average year. The pressure is ramped up on him. You know, we've got to get results. We've got to get those wins. But but I like him. I really like Farke. I think he's been absolutely superb. I think it's one of those positions that the 49ers have got right. You know, they've looked at everything and gone, who's the best candidate? Daniel Farke, get him in that we can get. You know, and they've done that. Nick Hammond on, you know, for transfer committee has obviously paid dividends as well, and hopefully it'll work for him. But you like you say, football, isn't it? You know, if you get a few bad results, it could start to turn. It really could.
I think he gets a little bit more time than a normal manager would in a Leeds United hot seat. I think because of some of the things that Brownie said, like he's come across so well, and you also combine that with the fact that we're seeing performances. Like, yeah, the results have not been perfect so far. There's been a couple in there. The Birmingham game particularly we weren't great in, but apart from that, everything else we've seen flashes of what he's going to bring, and then that obviously all came into the result that we got at the weekend, which nobody had predicted. I was on the show last week and I said I'd have taken a point, I'd have snapped your hand off. And, you know, to score 4 goals away at Portman Road, yeah, with still some issues defensively, but they could not handle us. And that was down to, sure, the player quality that we had in them positions, but it was down to the football too. So I think he's got time on his side. I think he'd be allowed to be outside the playoffs come probably October, November, before pressure really started getting on for why we're not in that kind of fight. And I think as long as come December, January, we're in and around the edge of the playoffs, I think most Leeds fans would be okay with that before then hopefully progressing and pushing on towards the back end of the season. And I think that's how it'll play out. Because I think we're still going to have some weeks where we don't quite get it right and we don't quite get it the result that we maybe deserve. But I think Piro's the big changer with that. Like you see, the game midweek's just ridiculous. I mean, I'm totally over it. I couldn't care less about having a cup.
Yeah.
A weaker team or a lower league team. It's just the way that it goes for us. But we had 26 shots from within the box. 26 shots. I mean, and we scored 1 goal, and that was a scrappy goal. Like Piro's plays that game.
The XG on that game was.
Piro plays, and we score 5 or 6. And I know that's a bit cliche, but it's the truth. We usually score 3 or 4. So we just didn't have that killer marksman in the box to put them away. So yeah, I'm fairly comfortable and confident that he'll get the time, but he'll also provide us what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've not chatted about them much tonight, but we're going to have a look at them now. Bradford City. It's a shame Gaz isn't on tonight. He's away sunning himself on a cruise, I think, at the moment. So
how dare he?
I know, how dare he? How dare he? But he popped a picture in the WhatsApp group and we were all jealous, I think, of what was going on. But, I mean, it's been a bit of an indifferent start, hasn't it, for Bradford City? I mean, I know Gaz and a lot of the City fan base don't seem happy with Hughes. You know, that seems to be turning now, doesn't it, really?
Yeah. I think that's a fair comment. It's been a mixed start results-wise. The transfer window just seems to have been a little bit, I don't know, can't quite put my finger on it of just how to describe it. It's been very hit and miss. There's been some names that you're like, yep, heard of him. And then you look at today, even on deadline day, the couple of lads that have come in, where is it? Chisholm, Afoka, who's a winger, in on loan from Villa. And then Ray Tulloch in from West Brom. Now, I'll be honest, Bradford fans, I've seen Ray Tulloch play a little bit in a loan spell at Rochdale, and I hope he's improved for your sakes. I think that's fair. He wasn't great in that loan spell at Rochdale. I think that was the first half of last season, and I think he spent the second half on loan at Dundalk, where it seems he fared better. I think he scored 5 goals for Dundalk in the second half of last season. So hopefully he'll be a lot better than he was at Dale. But I'm not holding my breath.
I've got an early season prediction for you. Mark Hughes out, Chris Millington in, Bradford City. What do we think, Dave?
Dave needs to unmute himself in a shocked fashion.
Dave, what do you think? Chris Millington to Bradford City. You heard it here first. Replacing Hughes. But Chris Millington now, he's like, you love him, don't you? He's got your silverware.
Yeah, I mean, we've only lost 1 in 6 this season, and it's like 2 in 20 if we go back into last season. I don't personally have much of a problem with him. I think he's doing fine today. It's his first proper managerial job. He's been an assistant. He was obviously Pete Wild's assistant. I'm fairly happy with how he's going along. We could do with putting the ball in the back of the net a bit more. I mean, we've scored 6 goals, but we've only conceded 3 or 4 in reply. He's pretty steady so far.
Can't see him getting the Bradford job though. If Hughes does go, to be fair, I know
Bradford
you
do something ridiculous like get someone else who's a bit like Mark Hughes. How they've managed to hold on to Andy Cook's anyone's guess.
Steve Bruce.
Other than the crowds they get, Bradford City's teams just League Two. That's it. They literally live off the fact. But we get 18,000 at home. Yeah, but your team's shite. That's it. You know they totally bottled the playoffs. They had that Cook last year. They did not with it really. I mean, I know it's been talked about and stuff, but yeah, the team's just pure League Two. They literally live off the fact they get 20,000 at home, but the team's actually just bang average. So
I never realised Dave had this amount of emotion towards Bradford City in a negative manner, especially for a lad who lives in Bradford.
I actually live in Brighouse, but yeah, it's near Bradford.
I genuinely thought you'd have done a bit further this way.
I've just got no affiliation with City at all. I have no friends who really support City or anything.
Wow.
I think yeah, they've probably got an element of what Leeds had for years, haven't they? Like, I think there were a time where probably Brownie, we kind of went through that phase, and we just didn't have a team good enough to challenge towards the top. We just didn't, but we always kind of felt like we should because we're Leeds United. I think that's just the truth. And there is an element of that probably will be the truth for Bradford as well, because they are a massive club for that division.
Yeah. Dave's face when you said that was a right picture. Lewis, take on City, preferably without dropping his word in, you know.
Yeah, what?
Thank God there's no Ofcom
here. For me, the business surprises me. I'm not quite sure where they're trying to go with the recruitment.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's one thing, ironically, I was going to ask Ryan, and I think it's something that I think we're going to have to we'll front up to him when he does get the opportunity to come on, because beginning of the season we're talking about quite a lean squad. The numbers were really inflated last year. And when you look at the business done already, and in the past, only the past week, and especially happening recently, Adam Wilson signed on from the New Saints. He's a winger. Obviously, the signing the lad from Villa, and there's rumours at the moment going around that potentially, I don't know if it's affected by not coming on, but there's rumours about getting a centre back from Norwich City on loan as well. So the numbers are huge for a League One team. They're massive, and I don't really understand of what City are wanting to achieve through that. I think the biggest thing for me is what they needed a really tight squad, and I agree with Gaz a lot from what he said in recent weeks. There wasn't much to really change about City. I looked at the squad that they played at the weekend. Obviously we saw the goal that happened against Morecambe, but Smallwood, your captain, is on the bench, and then you bring in young kids in as well. I just don't see what direction they're potentially going in. And they've got a really tricky game against Mansfield. If I'm a City fan, and I know a lot of City fans, go home their way, they are 50-50 at the moment of where do they go. Beginning of this season is probably the first time in a long time I've heard City fans going, I'm not expecting to get playoffs. And for me, I kind of see where Dave's going with it. City are traditionally a League Two bottom League One side. Historically, that's where they live. They're probably big in terms of the numbers that they get in terms of crowds, but realistically, they're probably around about the division where they probably should be. And that's not, taking any kind of joke and bias away from me, because, I've got, no allegiances. I know a lot of, like I say, good friends who are City fans, but for me, it's how long and does this run go on for? Hughes has got to turn this around quickly, in my opinion, for them to have a successful season. And that season needs to be playoffs. There's no doubt about it. For me, City don't get playoffs. That is a big failure, a massive failure.
I think they're much weaker than last season. Lou.
I do.
Much weaker. Like, the Banks from Palace last season was huge for them going forward. They all lost Critchlow as well from Town. Like, I just think they're so much weaker. And then I think Gaz made the point of Harry Lewis and Andy Cook not really striking hot at the beginning of this season. They carried them last season along with the two that I just mentioned. So you've lost 4 massive players. I think they're way off it. I think they're struggling to get playoffs.
I think the changing system's got a lot to do, a fair bit 100%. To do with it. And I can understand, from a manager perspective, it didn't go up probably when they were hoping to. And so you maybe want to tweak things, but I think, teams need to have a plan B, C, D, E and F, don't they? And from a City perspective, let's be honest again, like I mentioned earlier, we're pretty fickle. To go to Morecambe against your old boss who beats you 3-0, that stings. That really stings. And I think from a transfer deadline day perspective, the best signing at the moment is Alex Patterson, who were at Harrogate. You've got to recruit players in around this level who know this inside out and who are going to tough it out and do what they need to do. And Patterson, to be fair, I said he was relatively improving because he had one good season at Harrogate, but he's come on and he's absolutely carried that team at the moment. Like you said, with Lewis and Cook maybe out of form at the moment, but you've got to, even if you have them 2 players, don't get me wrong, your keeper and your strikers are probably arguably the most important, but if you're going to have that number of players in your squad, you're going to have to compensate for maybe 1 or 2 players out of form. And I'm not too sure at the moment where it gets better for City. Hopefully it does. It all bodes well for the City of Bradford if City do well. Let's be absolutely brutally honest about that. But when times are tough at City, there's definitely a lot of noise around it. And because, like Dave said, there's a lot of numbers that go into the ground and around the City, it can turn quite toxic very quickly. And I think once that happens, it's a tricky path to get across. And we mentioned it last week. If Hughes doesn't get it right and does potentially go, what does the future look like without, a star name like Hughes? Do the tendencies still stay the same and getting 15, 16,000? Watching the highlights and reading reports and hearing from friends who went to the Crewe game, they were apparently pretty awful until the goal went in against Crewe at home. And with a great respect to Crewe, City should be comfortably beating them, albeit they probably did in the end with a 1-0. But they've got to be looking up against, and I think, there is strong competition at League Two, but City should be more than capable of getting in around that playoffs. But at the moment, they look quite average in that division.
Can I just interject with actual transfer news from Huddersfield Town?
Oh, can we have a breaking news?
I'll be honest, it's not a good one. It's an outgoing in terms of Scott High has left Huddersfield to go to Ross County on loan for the season. So there we go.
Brilliant.
Some actual Huddersfield Town transfer news on deadline day, but it's not the kind you wanted. I mean, all it does is make that already thin squad 1 man thinner.
So what's that, 24 gone now?
Yeah, with Scott High going to Ross County tonight. I mean, I just love how they've got the audacity in the article, though, on the website to put, comments from Neil Warnock. And I'm like, what's it going to say? All the best. Good luck, lad. Or actually, more likely, we probably could have done with keeping you around the place. We don't have that many players to pick from.
Just for the body.
Yeah.
I tell you who we're having a madness today is Forest.
Yes.
They've just gone and stepped it up again after last year. Some of the signings that they've made this week are just nuts.
I didn't see this coming either, because last season, there was an element of understanding for me anyway about Forest, because they lost so many players that were on loan and out of contract that they needed to bring in the bodies. This deadline day, didn't expect that to be the case, but I've seen them going in for the young lad at Norwich.
Oba Mandela.
That's the one with the name that I'm glad you can pronounce. Again, it's just another player. Obviously, I mean, ones like Hudson-Odoi, Divock Origi as well, that caught me off guard. Fair play. They look like good signings. But
Dominguez from
Bologna.
Top
football
player.
manager legend.
Top player. There is a live one, though. This is a good one as far as Leeds is concerned. Bella Kotcher's completed a loan move to PSV 2 minutes ago.
Southampton.
Good move from Southampton. Nice are in for a late swoop for Lloris after Kasper Schmeichel obviously terminated his contract.
That would make a lot of sense.
Make a lot of sense.
well, obviously, yeah, Schmeichel's gone. Lloris is not looking like to get in at Spurs, is he? So
all go. It's all go.
52 minutes of the window to go.
Oh yeah, Forest have signed. I can't pronounce this one. Flatidimos from Benfica. I think the Greek goalkeeper. I think it's Benfica. That's another good signing.
It is, but then again, they only just brought in Matt Turner to be, and what was at the time was he was going to be the number one. Now, obviously, he's had he started over league games so far, but it's another strange one. It's similar to Dean Henderson going to Palace in that they, given the form of Sam Johnston, obviously he's done really well, to be fair, in a Palace shirt under Roy Hodgson to the point where he's got into the England squad. You know, that's two number ones. Similarly with Arsenal, obviously having David Raya and this whole having. It just seems a bit greedy to me. Like, you have your number one, your obviously great goalkeeper, and then a slightly worse understudy. Not two really good goalkeepers to compete against each other.
I agree completely, actually, with that. I think we've gone in and out of times with goalkeepers, haven't we? And we've been, over the last few years, very much a staple number one and then a capable number two, but he's never going to play a league game. That's pretty much how...
He's only... he covers injuries, doesn't he?
Yeah, but we're swinging back the other way now. Well, so it seems. I don't think it works having two number ones because your back four are getting used to one number one. He then comes out when one keeper has one bad game and another voice is behind you. I personally wouldn't go down that route.
Just having a look here to the reaction about Scott High leaving Huddersfield Town. First comment that I can see on Twitter, Lee Morris. Saying, not bad to say he was supposed to be a future Town captain and was deemed good enough to be a regular Championship starter less than 12 months ago. So I think, a few people not too happy.
Lyndon Gooch has joined Stoke on a permanent deal. Josh Tymon's gone to Swansea, by the way, so he's replaced Ryan Manning.
That makes sense. Where did Manning go in the end?
Went Southampton, didn't he?
Yes, that was it. Of course he did.
Good old Russell.
Oh, we've got an update 4 minutes ago. Bournemouth's move for Daka has stalled, unlikely to happen. Also, their talks with Leeds over a deal for Sinistera have hit issues. Looks a tough one to get over the line.
Oh, who's saying that? Who's saying that?
That's from Graham Bailey. So he's quite a reputable source. Is Graham Bailey, transfer correspondent for 90 Minute Football.
Just seen that from Fabrizio Romano saying that both Ian Maatsen and Mark Cucurella are going to stay at Chelsea. Now, the Ian Maatsen one surprises me because apparently Chelsea basically put the ball in his court, so to speak.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Burnley are coming with a loan move that could go to a 31-point-something million transfer. That is insane because that's a lot of money. But also,
it was an obligation too, Chris. So if they'd have gone down, they'd have had to pay 32 million
for a left back. Yeah, and don't get wrong, he had a really good season at Championship level last year, but I'm a little surprised that he's going to stick around and compete because obviously Cucurella isn't going anywhere. The fact that, again, there's a player whose career has nosedived since leaving Brighton. There's kind of the other side of the coin, isn't it, really, why you shouldn't necessarily always leave.
Yeah.
But, Chilwell looks set to be the number one. He's obviously got the captain's armband whilst Reece James is out injured. I'm really surprised that Maatsen hasn't taken that punt, albeit he did play quite a bit for them in pre-season. But 32 million is a shed load.
The only thing that I can see with the Maatsen deal is like Burnley is a Premier League outfit when you're potentially going to be getting, a few beatings. How is that going to look for you from a reputational point of view as a defender in that team when you could stay at Chelsea? He's what, 22, Maatsen?
Yeah.
And then maybe get a move to a Villa in 12 months' time for a bit less money. I can maybe understand just sitting it out for a year and see how that works out. I get you. I hear what you're saying. But
I bet you'd have Emmett left back at Leeds.
Oh man, yeah.
You would.
There were some noises about it, and I was always like, "There's no chance he comes to the Championship again." Personally,
surprising though, because I would have thought that relationship that we would have had with Vincent Kompany from obviously working together last season would have had a big impact.
True.
I don't know if any of you have seen the Mission to Burnley documentary that Sky made, the 4-parter.
It's a brilliant program, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a great watch for one, and actually, I kind of learned a lot. I've always thought Vincent Kompany, whenever he's been on like Match of the Day or that sort of thing, comes across as a decent bloke, but he comes across so well, I thought, in that. and the way that he has the relationships with the players as well. I genuinely thought Maatsen would have fancied that, but I wonder if it is the fact that it's that obligation. It's that it's so, he'd be happy to go for the loan for the season.
Yeah.
But it's then the joining Burnley if they go down that might have been the sticking point for him.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have an obligation. You end up getting stuck in Championship with Burnley for a year. Who's then going to pay 40 million to get cover
you out
the cost? There. Yeah, like it puts you in a bit of an unenvious position, doesn't it, for him? So, yeah, interesting one.
Speaking of kind of transfers with obligations, I want to touch to you with this one, Lewis. That was Lewis Hall. Seems a bit of a again with the whole Chelsea getting rid of their own young talent and bringing everybody else's. Surprised me a lot that Lewis Hall, though, to Newcastle, like he looked good in the games that he played under Potter, but again, that was more out of necessity from Potter's point of view. Where do you see that? Because I think that's around the 28 million mark, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, crikey, Newcastle has spent the money again, let's be honest. And you do look at Chelsea with the quotes of $1 billion, and Man City still spent a lot of money in Man United, but Newcastle we've really spent a fair bit at the moment. I think you look at what Harvey Barnes is short of 40, Tonali 55. We signed Minter, who's gone on loan to Feyenoord, undisclosed. Livramento at over 30 million. So there's a lot of pounds going out there. In terms of Lewis Hall, I think there's what I really like, and we talk about Brighton, and I obviously was there before, and you can tell that Daniel Ashworth's done a lot of research because of his parents. He's been brought up as a Newcastle fan. He's got that affinity with the club, same as the likes of Longstaff and Daniel Byrne, etc. So he knows about the club, albeit he's been brought up in the Chelsea academy. He had some versatility, some cover as well, because there's rumours about Matt Targett potentially leaving, but it looks like he might be staying. But to have an option of either Byrne, Targett, Hall can play further upfield as well. And I think Howe said when he first saw him against Newcastle when he was manager, when he played for Chelsea, he was impressed by him. I think what really interests me and intrigues me about what looks like is that Howe is building a squad for now and the future, but does Howe manage the team in the future? That would be my question mark, because you look at Livramento. I've rated Livramento a lot, even since seeing him right at the beginning of Chelsea and Southampton. Hall again, very similar age. It's how long does Howe last in that dugout? Can he have the time to manage those players? Let's be honest, probably in the football world, he probably doesn't. And when a new manager comes in, they have their own ideas and buy simply for the present. I think it's been really astute business from Newcastle and Eddie Howe especially. I think they've really done the research. I think they've recruited strongly. I don't think we'll probably finish top 3, being honest, just because we've got the Champions League to play, and I think it'll probably be top 6. And I'm, again, taking the Newcastle hat off. Tonali, for me, is one of the signings of the season. I think he is an absolute Rolls Royce of a player. Yeah. You look at the likes of signings of midfielders who go in for more money than what Tonali's got. To convince an AC Milan player who absolutely adores that place to come and convince him to sign for Newcastle blows my mind. Blows my mind. But even in the games we've seen, and albeit it was a bit of a disaster against Liverpool, he's just an absolute genius on the ball in midfield. And when you get the likes of Longstaff as backup, and Longstaff were arguably one of our better players last season, out of nowhere. So yeah, there's a lot of competition for places which we need. The problem is you've got Man City in the Carabao Cup in the next round, even though it probably shouldn't have happened, but that's a different debate.
I just want to come back to the Huddersfield thing. I know I'm kind of flitting around all over the place. You know what I said about, what the quotes from Warnock going to be? It'll just be some, good for him to go and get game time. How's this for a line? Last line of this. So
I know what you're going to say.
Starts off all normal. I'm pleased with Scott. This loan has come up at the right time for him. Malky Mackay is up there at Ross County, and he's just the type of manager he needs. I also think, from Scott's point of view, it will be good for him to play a new environment, having been with us his entire career. Now, I've noticed when he does play here, the fans are more comfortable looking for faults in his game because he's one of them. So it would be great for him to go out on loan with a good club and manager at a good standard where he can enjoy himself.
Bizarre.
That highlighted quote in this particular thing from
just what I saw. Yeah.
HCFC Dream on Twitter has highlighted that I've noticed when he does play here, the fans are more comfortable looking for faults in his game because he's one of them.
Hasn't that gone out on the official Huddersfield Town?
And that's gone out in the article. Yeah,
it feels to me very
Huddersfield Town thing, like
very Scott Parker when Scott Parker got sacked.
Yeah.
It's like he's asking for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Weird.
Well, he'll probably get a nice little chunk of change, what if he gets the boot? But yeah, I saw that. Actually, I was going to bring that up, and I was like, that is what a thing to say, and that's on the official website.
I mean, it's one of those. You see it happen. Like I've seen it even at lower levels with players that have come through. That there is that sometimes there is that bit more of an expectancy, or I think it's to be fair. I don't think it's necessarily consciously a thing. It's
the other way around, isn't it?
I think the other way around. At Leeds, it's always been the other way around.
Yeah,
always been the other way around.
Yeah, I've seen at other clubs the ones that you almost want them to do so well because they've come through your academy or whatever. That when they do make the mistakes, you just kind of stick. You get out more.
Not with us.
I think you give them more time. I think you give them more time. To be fair,
yeah.
I remember at Leeds when Matt Kilgallen were coming through and he were playing alongside Dan Harding. We'd signed Dan Harding. From Ipswich, and it was like it was like the next best thing Dan Harding would sign him. And every time Kilgallen made a mistake, it was Dan Harding's fault. Like fans used to go ballistic at him. Like Kilgallen would give away a penalty, and it was Dan Harding's fault for not sorting it out on the left wing. Like honestly, it was constant. And that poor guy got hounded out of the club. He went on to have a good career, didn't he? Played Southampton, went on and played in Premier League, and obviously Kilgallen were a good player as well. But he used to get so much more length than poor Dan Harding that were on the side of Simon Walton were the same when he came through at 16, 17-year-old, and he was never really good enough.
Me personally, I don't know, it's something special when a homegrown talent comes into the team. It's like Archie Gray now. Archie Gray for me can do no wrong. Yeah. He's got a halo above his head. So every 5-yard pass, I'm like, oh, Archie, wow. Do you know what I mean? It's like you just do and
generational talent.
Yeah. His mistakes, you just brush them under the carpet. You're like, it wasn't his fault. It were whoever he's playing with in midfield. Do you know what I mean? It was like not his fault. So I'm the opposite. I think it's like homegrown talents get more time than anything, really.
Yeah.
I agree. I think I can see what you're saying. I see what you're saying, Chris. I get that. I think there's weirdly enough. I think there's probably a lot more. I say a lot more. I think there might be more pressure on homegrown ones to do well because it's their club, and you want them to do well. I completely appreciate that. But yeah, I think if if you're an academy product coming through the system, one to just see him put on a first team jersey and actually play is a big thing. And I think I always figure that you seem to get behind him a little bit more. And if you score, once you score the first goal, it seems to just take it up a level for me. I think when an academy product does well, and I think even more so, probably more at non-league level really. But if a player does well in a career and gets a move to an EFL team, I think that's a positive as well, depending on how well they've done at your club. I think the worst thing is, if they've not really had the opportunity and then you never really see him and then move on to something different. You might be a little bit bitter going, I never really saw him do well for our club. But yeah, I think it's always good to have your own grown players come out and do well.
Maybe it's just a Huddersfield thing.
Dave, I know you've got to go, mate. You've got a busy day at work tomorrow. Really appreciate you coming on. But looking ahead for Halifax short term, what do we think, mate?
Well, short term, it's Rochdale tomorrow, which is something we'd definitely class as a derby, and it's been like 20 years coming. But obviously I can't go, as you said, I'm working. So, but even so, I'd be at Brighouse tomorrow. Yeah. Chris, I would have been at Brighouse tomorrow. They're playing Albion Sports in FA Cup first qualifying round. I think Goole are playing tonight against Whitby. So whatever happens there, we've got a Yorkshire club in the next round already.
Whitby have won.
Oh, have Whitby won? Okay, yeah, I haven't checked on the result or the time to realise it would be well.
It was a very tight 6-0 to Whitby. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I'll drop you a message in that case, Dave, because I'll be at the game tomorrow. Drop you a message and let know how it's going.
All right, sure, yeah.
I don't know if for anyone else, is Chris a freeze free for anyone else?
He's struggling a bit up there, isn't he?
He was a pixel, and now he's a freeze frame.
Yeah,
There we go. Oh, he's come back.
exactly.
He's moving around.
We have got some transfer breaking news. Ross Stewart to Southampton is off. That's been pretty much on all day.
What? That's off?
It's off. Right at the death.
Wow. I wonder why. Oh,
Well, that's
Phil
a good
here.
one from
There's an
Sunderland's
update.
perspective because we were talking earlier, weren't we, Jay? And you were saying about how Sunderland seems to be being picked apart by other clubs, and for that to be, cancelled, that transfer off, is a huge bonus, really, for Sunderland from their perspective.
Absolutely. I didn't mean to.
Your prediction might be on though.
I didn't mean to not allow us to see our man off there. I'm sorry, Dave. Didn't realise we were just going to
deadline day,
disappear.
mate. It takes precedent. Come on. Yeah, this is a weird time. I mean, it's like what can clubs even do now if you're putting in a bid? And I mean, you can't put a bid in now, can you? I mean, what about
It's the waiting game, isn't it? Really, it's just wait to see, where you're at.
The most recent update now for Sinisterra is Bournemouth are working right up to the deadline to get a deal over the line. Of course, we're going to be in it right to the last minute. Sinisterra is currently having his Bournemouth medical, but there are still elements of the deal to be sorted. This one will go right to the wire. That's what Sky Sports has said.
I mean, the thing is, would you? I mean, we might have touched on it earlier, but would you two be expecting a replacement if Sinisterra does go to Bournemouth? Would you be expecting a replacement tonight? Or are you just thinking, no, he'll go and that's the squad? You say not now, Brownie, but who's to say Leeds aren't trying to do things at the same
Could
time?
have been something going on all day.
Yeah.
I think the thing is if we sell him, it won't be a direct replacement anyway, Chris, because I think we already have the replacement as such for Sinisterra in Somerville, Nonto, James, and the rest of the squad that play them. I think what will happen is it would then free up the money to then
buy
go
a left back.
A left back or a 10. A left back or a 10. So, yeah, I would
Don't
expect
want
to see one coming in.
The loan situation, if we loan Sinisterra out, his loan clause has expired by all accounts. Why are we loaning out? Why are we loaning him out?
I said to you earlier, though, didn't I? Like, it seems to me like it could well be with the thought process of him coming back if we get promoted. Like, you've got a £30 million player there that you then don't have to pay again for in 12 months' time that would then aid us in the Premier League. I know it's difficult to see it like that, but maybe the club see it like that. They're not going to lose much. They don't need to sell the cash range. He's got a 5-year contract, 4 years left on it. Does it make more sense to actually not sell him, take a sizable loan fee in, and then be able to play him again next season if we go up? And if we don't go up, then we sell him in 12 months' time. The thing is,
I think at this point, though, I think they will see what we see, which is he is the difference maker. He is the one that takes you from playoff contention to possibly top 2. Because and I think that is worth.
I agree with that.
Worth everything. That is worth that is for me the critical factor. And I think if you're letting him go on loan, I just don't see the point, because without Sinisterra, your chances of even going up are reduced dramatically.
There's something going on here, though.
There's got to be. Yeah,
because otherwise this deal had already been done. This has been going on all day now. So there's clearly something holding this up from a Leeds end. Either they've not come to us with the deal that we want, or we're working on a replacement that we've not yet got. One or the other.
It's like the old TV show, isn't it? It's imagine if Bully just came across the screen. It's like, look what you could have won at Bournemouth. You've got Irola, you've got Aarons, you've got Adams, and you might have Sinisterra. It's like the guy just running across with his book like that. Yeah,
they've been our nemesis all window, haven't they?
Oh,
I'm now over the Max Aarons deal because we actually ended up with a better right back, in my opinion.
Do you think? I'm going to ask this, Jay. Do you think Aarons might have played left back?
Yeah, maybe. No, you might be. You might be spot on because he's played there inverted, and obviously Farker knows him. I did think that myself the other day. Could it have been a case that we'd signed them both, Spence for right back and Aarons for left back? I think Spence will start left back on tomorrow. By the way, that's my out there call. I think he will because he ain't going to
straight away without.
I think so. He ain't going to trust Yelder there against Sheffield Wednesday, in my opinion.
Byram's injured.
Firpo's injured. Ayling, I think he will want him in the side for the time being until maybe Kamara's ready and we've got that bit more experience because we've got no experience. I think Ayling will start right back and I think Spence will start left back. I'm just putting it out there.
Ayling survives. Ayling survives.
I'm not saying it's not risky, but I think it's what he'll end up doing tomorrow.
That's Ayling, man. Ayling survives whatever happens.
He always survives.
Stays in that team, man. By the way, can I just say, how are Barcelona still signing players? Apparently got João Felix and João Cancelo. I'm like, what?
It's crazy, isn't it?
How are they still doing this? They were in like financial peril. I feel like sometimes it's like Everton. It's like, guys, you need to take your medicine. Like Leeds 20 years ago, we financially imploded and spent 16 years, in lower division football. I'm like, Barcelona, Everton, time's up, mate. You got to pay your due.
Apparently,
though. I mean, come on.
This is one of the reasons why Ansu Fati has now ended up at Brighton is because they're paying quite, a loan fee.
80% of the wage, apparently.
Yeah, a large percentage of the wages, and then suddenly that frees up somehow enough money to bring João Felix and João Cancelo.
This is why FFP is an absolute farce, though, Chris. Like, it's just get rid of it at this point. Yeah. Like, clubs are just circumventing all these situations through different loan clauses and moves and stuff. It's just
look at Chelsea. Chelsea. It's like 9-year contracts to try and
Breaking news. Patson Daka deal from Leicester to Bournemouth off, as we know. As soon as that happened, Kiefer Moore was going nowhere, so he was on the verge of signing for Millwall. That's now off.
See, that's a massive shame because for me, I mean, I know he's probably 31-ish, give or take. He is on his day. He's a cracking striker at Championship level. Again, he's a big old school target man, and for a start, you don't see enough of them nowadays. Really, I think he would have been a great signing for many a Championship club. To be fair,
I agree.
Don't you find Chelsea just like the most kind of like, I don't know, they're sick of me. I hate Chelsea. I mean, I hate as a Leeds fan anyway. I absolutely detest Chelsea, but just the way that this money that's just flushing around, I can't stand them.
It's
really
unbelievable.
Can't stand them.
It's unbelievable to me that they've lost Abramovich and they've become less appealing. Like they've got even worse in the way that they conduct business. Yeah. Like it's unbelievable. But I agree with you.
Oh, I mean, honestly driving up the wall.
I saw Darren McAntony, the Peterborough chairman on Sky Sports News earlier, who himself can be a little bit outlandish at times, but actually I quite like him as a character. And to be fair, he made some fair points. From a business perspective, what Chelsea are doing is breaking no rules. It makes business sense, even if on the face of it, to football fans, it doesn't make any football sense.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I actually think I've looked at quite a lot of Chelsea's recruitment this summer and thought, you know what, I think that's quite a good sign. That's a good signing. He could do well there. And under Poch as well. I mean, Christ, the average age of that squad must have come down tenfold as well for a start overall. And I think under Poch, it could work. Given time, it could work.
And I think, let's be honest, they were that bad last season. It couldn't be much worse. So they had to have a massive overhaul, didn't they?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I actually looked at some of them signings and I'm a bit like, I'm not convinced actually by some of them.
Go on. Which ones? Any to mind?
I think they could have strengthened the goalkeeper area a lot more. I think Sanchez wasn't even first choice at Brighton, so that surprises me. Lavia at 58 million. I mean, Southampton are rubbing their hands at that. They're absolutely rubbing their hands at it. He's a good player, 58 million. And Brighton, obviously. Obviously, it's a blow losing Nkunku. He's a brilliant player. Obviously, they've lost him. I think Jackson is a really good player, but I don't think he's going to be... He's not... I could be wrong on this. I don't see him in the same level as what a Man City is a Liverpool. So I don't know.
He's only young though, isn't he?
Jackson,
it's sure. Mudryk. I know Mudryk's not this summer, but I got rid of Mudryk from my FPL. I was like, no, I'm not having him in fantasy football.
I'm just not massively convinced by the recruitment side.
I agree with Lewis. I agree. I agree completely. I'm not a massive fan of Disasi either. Like, I think I don't think he gets into any of the other top four sides.
He's certainly got a mistake in him.
What's the strategy though?
What with age?
But what is that plan? I mean, it seems so scattergun, and it's I just find it repulsive. I really do. I just think it's.
What
I
a
think
word.
it's awful. I think it's awful. I can't stand Chelsea.
To be fair, I personally, I've got nothing against Chelsea. Like, I grew up, one of my best mates when I was younger was a Chelsea fan, and I kind of want to be the opposite. I kind of want to believe in this somehow. Don't ask me why.
I like
like
Pochettino. I really like Poch.
I like Poch personally. I like quite a few of the players. I think Jackson could. I reckon he'll have a good season himself.
I think Poch is silly though for going to PSG, where it was always going to end in the fact that they're a mental club and player power, etc., etc. And then he's gone to Chelsea. That's quite turbulent as well. I think Poch is a kind of manager where, like Spurs, was a good situation for him. I do. I know we talk about Spursy and we make jokes about them, but I can imagine Poch at Newcastle, for example. I can imagine Poch and Newcastle just fitting. I think at Chelsea, the way this Chelsea team and players and
I think it's one of those. I could see it working though. I can see it working, but equally, if you think back, Steve, to when Potter was appointed, and we were still the Route 1 show at the time, and we didn't have quite as many contributors. I thought the whole Bowley project and Potter, I'm fairly sure I thought it was going to work. I didn't know way did I see him being sacked after like 6 months, to be fair. And I'm now falling back into the same trap of thinking, but it's a new project under Poch and this younger squad, and it's a project. It'll work. It'll last. And then fast forward a year, and it'll be a third manager or something, I imagine. But
absolutely.
it could. I really like the squad.
I've got to come in with some breaking news because it's this is just deadline day all over. So what did I say about 5 minutes ago about Ross Stewart? Southampton have completed the sign of Ross Stewart from Sunderland.
Are you joking?
10 million quid.
Deal off, deal back on.
Yeah, deal on. And Amrabat has confirmed now Manchester United. I think this is a really good deal, actually, in terms of the figures. 8.5 million loan fee for the season and then option to buy at 21 million. I actually think, considering the figures nowadays, it's actually really, really good business. That.
Brentford signing Neil Maupay. What is going on?
Weird.
It's a cheap one. It's a cheap one, to be fair, is Amrabat, but I'd still rather have had Palhinha, especially knowing that he could have been 100%. Available. Because it would have made perfect sense in this case. For Fulham especially, would have been, you cash in yourself Palhinha for, I don't know, 40, 50 mil or whatever to United. But this is where United could then easily have offloaded one of the ones that they're not so sure on anymore. Like Scott McTominay would have slotted in as a holding midfielder at Fulham quite nicely, whether that was a loan move or just a cheap fee as part of, to sweeten the Palhinha deal.
I think there'd be absolute uproar if Palhinha left Fulham with Mitrovic leaving. I think we'd have been absolutely uproar. And Palhinha is superb, but I think Fulham fans would have been very, very unhappy to lose probably the 2 best players from last season.
I think they were okay with the fee, Fulham. They just wanted a replacement and didn't find it. I mean, 50-odd million for Palhinha, and Palhinha obviously wanting the deal. Because once the players' heads turned, it's difficult. But they stood on and decided, no, you got to come back because we've not found a suitable replacement. I think fair enough. Fair play.
Yeah.
By the way, can I say bad recruitment, Man United, over the last 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean, just what has that been about?
We don't have that long of the show left, mate. Unless you want to do it until 2 a.m. for these deal sheets.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, God.
I think you look at it, don't you, this season compared to other teams, and I argue the likes of. I think Villa have had a really strong transfer window. Yeah. I think Brighton have had a really strong transfer window. I think Ange Postecoglou's done a decent job at Spurs to be fair recruited. You look at Man United, they're not even in my top 10 in terms of having a transfer window that's been up there. I think Onana's not a bad signing, but I think probably like for like with De Gea. I think Mount just needed to move, being honest, and he's going to start every game at the moment at Man U because he's probably better than the others. But you look at today's business, Reguilon baffles me. Johnny Evans baffles me. You're looking at that, and if you're a Man United fan wanting to win a title, with a great respect to Reguilon and Evans, they're not the kind of players you'd have on your list, would they?
No, I totally agree. I think one of the oh god, what I just had the transfer in my head that happened. I was like, it's the strangest transfer, and I've completely forgotten what it is. Hang on, let me.
Is it Man United?
I
Because they got Igalo, didn't remember him as a striker.
Oh yeah,
Man United.
yeah.
That was
We
a
just
weird
might-
one.
that was
China.
And I think, as well from whether it's true or not, but you talk about Maguire. Maguire needs to move. Maguire needs to move.
Why is he-
I cannot understand why he's potentially persevering or whatever that looks
It's
like.
money. It's money, Lou.
And McTominay as well. McTominay, Evans today is a sign that Maguire potentially might not be playing a lot. And when it comes to January, like I say, if you're Man United, to cash in, his value is not going to be the same as what it would be now. No. McTominay might not be the same as it is now, unless McTominay might have to play with Fred leaving. I'm baffled by some of the decisions, but you know what? I could be completely wrong. Knowing the way I talk sometimes, McTominay could have a belt sort of a few months now.
Harry Maguire is on too much money for West Ham to match his wage. That's what it is. West Ham were pretty much nailed on to get him, and they weren't prepared to pay him anywhere near his salary. So Harry Maguire's just thinking,
are we talking like 250 or something? Is it like
he's on? Yeah,
ridiculous, like 250.
Obnoxious amounts of money, isn't it?
It can't be that much, surely.
It probably is, though, Chris. I mean,
it's a mega deal when Man United.
I probably said 100, 250 grand tops.
Like
it's a centre half.
By the way, can I say, are West Ham winning the league? By the way, this year,
maybe not, but their recruitment has been superb after Rice. They are in my top 3 or 4 of recruitment.
Well, by the way, this is a team that went and had to advertise for players a couple 3 weeks ago. Do you remember that story that came out where West Ham had were applying for players to buy? I mean, the turnarounds unbelievable.
Just gonna drop a bit of one from lower down in the league. Peterborough have just signed Jacob Wakeling from Swindon.
Yes, I've seen this. Go on.
Pretty much means that Jonathan Clark-Harris is going to be moving somewhere. I would have thought, because that's been rumored all day.
Now Steve had touched.
He was rumored with Mr. Downs, wasn't
he? Yeah, Steve Downs had mentioned that Huddersfield were allegedly interested, but the thing is, I would imagine to take Jonathan Clark-Harris from Peterborough, you'd be looking at 2.5 million for a transfer fee, there or thereabouts. Maybe a little less. Well, this is the thing.
Yeah, true.
McAntony is no. It depends. I'll tell you it depends a lot on actually how many years he's got left in his contract. Because Peterborough do that really clever. Well, the thing that's worked for them anyway. If anyone that gets to the last year of their contract and they're not signing a new deal, they transfer list by default. You're just on the list, and because they want to get the fees, but. I can't see McAntony letting Jonathan Clark-Harris go for cheap. So I reckon you'll probably be looking at least a couple of mil there or thereabouts.
I've got a lot of time for McAntony. I think he's a super runner.
So Huddersfield probably don't have that money though. So time well done on that one. The other thing that I had seen was I'd seen a Bradford fan that made a fair point that obviously with Swindon selling Jacob Wakeling to Peterborough, undisclosed fee, but probably gives them the money to then potentially buy Jake Youngs if they wanted to from Bradford City, given how well his loan spell started there.
It must be so frustrating for City fans as well. And I'm saying this tongue-in-cheek because I know people, obviously, but, you've had Owen Doyle, who they had, and he's gone and been a success at Swindon. You have Jake Young, who everybody talks about, and then, for whatever reason, is out of favour, goes to Swindon and he's doing what he's doing. It's that... they're on the doorstep. They've got him in a building. Why not just? There's obviously something in the players to make him half decent. Just you got to try and get the best out of him, haven't you? And let's be honest, I'm not. And this is probably wild off the mark, but Cook isn't hitting form, so why not put somebody alongside him?
Yeah.
Somebody like a Jake Young. Don't let Cook do all the work. Give him some support. He's a perfect player. Obviously, I know they've got Oliver out as well, haven't they? But, he's never really settled down. Leangle in the past hasn't really settled down. You've got to, sometimes players who are struggling through form, who you are hanging your hat on to have a really good season, you actually should be helping them more than other players that you probably, you may be thinking that actually they could be rotation every other week. Cook's not one you want to rotate, but you've got to give him a hand, haven't you, somewhere? And Jake Young at the moment is showing him, actually, well, this is what I can do. He's rocking up at Avenue in the pre-season for with all the academy lads. It's pretty unfair on a first-team player, really.
Let's be honest, and the way he started that spot Swindon, he's giving a massive one of these to Mark Hughes. He really is, because he's been absolute fire. Obviously, 4 goals in one game, but he'd scored, I think, 3 in the first 4 or 5
Did you see what
games.
Mark Hughes
Wow.
said? Had you seen what
No,
Mark
go
Hughes
on.
said about it? So Mark Hughes had basically said, he just needed first team games. He just needed game time. Like, that's what he's come out and say. It's like, well, why didn't you
give him
why didn't you give him the game time then? Like,
Yeah.
you know.
But I think what's going to be the interesting thing is, and I don't know if it is true, but what I heard allegedly is that I think because of the way the transfers have been done, I think now they've got to have a homegrown player within the City squad as part of the rules of VFL, because I think you're supposed to have one. And I think they were allowed potentially not to have one last year, and I believe they've got to have one this year for whatever reason. And I know they've got Bobby Painton as well, who were on loan at Sedge. He's kind of been thought of very highly. But at the same point, you've got to manage your squad, and yeah, Jake Young's on the doorstep, and yet they're getting 2 or 3 loans in from Norwich and Villa and whatever.
West Brom. Yeah.
West Brom. So I think if you liked to Jake Young, you'd be quite happy to probably leave and get your first team action, like you said, somewhere where he's probably liked him. Michael Flynn from my days in the all commentary days with Michael Flynn, he will absolutely look after his players. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt. And he will get the best out of him. And well, he already is, to be fair.
Yeah.
And he's a rival. There's a rival. Sorry, Jess. But a league rival. You know what I mean? We're not talking about you getting into a team in another division.
Yes,
you're up against somebody you're competing to get promoted against.
It's wild, isn't it?
Honestly, it's crazy. Isn't it? Why would you give an asset of yours to a team who is competing against you? And again, it would be unquestionable. I just don't understand it. I just don't get it.
No, absolutely.
Forest have just confirmed Sangar from
Who? Oh, yes, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, that's another one.
They spent about 80 million today.
Update from Phil here. Sinistera less than 20 minutes to the deadline, and no one wants to call it. Down south for his medical, still ongoing. Could be a deal sheet scenario.
There's something going down. Oh, going on.
So, and also one thing that we've probably got to take into account is if, for instance, and it's a big if, so we don't know the Sinistera details, we're clearly not there, but it's quite clear he's not going to play tomorrow. Let's be honest, he's not going to play tomorrow.
No.
But what does that look like if he doesn't sign for Bournemouth? What does that next 2 or 3 weeks look like? And I'm not just saying in terms of Leeds, I'm talking about other players who've had deals called off, Polinian at Fulham and stuff. It's imagine just putting us in a scenario. It's like going and being offered a job. You're there. You're about to sign a contract. Actually pulled away. You've got to go into work the next day. That's a tricky situation to go back into. To go back into a dressing room knowing that you're potentially leaving the club for another option, whether that's better or not better. To go back into that and get into the manager's plans and get into the routine must be a real conundrum.
Well, I don't know if you guys listen to the Rest is Football. It's like Gary Lineker, Micah Richards, and Alan Shearer's podcast.
They're funny together.
They're brilliant out there. And they were chatting to Fabrizio Romano, and he was saying in the last probably 2 to 3 years, you've got a situation now where players are contacting him like directly to kind of put things out. Whereas he was saying, when he first kind of came through, it was like clubs or agents. Or now it's players.
I don't surprise me.
Players are going to him. I mean, so that's where you're at now, isn't it? Contract. They don't give a shit. Really.
I had this conversation, and in the place where you definitely shouldn't have this conversation on Twitter the other day with somebody, because people football fans, like in the nicest possible way, are very, very naive to actually what's going on, and like this outrage that Fabrizio had put out there that a contract was agreed before the clubs had agreed on a fee. And like they were talking as if this was like scandalous and it's against the rules and all the rest of it. But it literally happens in every single top transfer. The agent will ring somebody at the club and say, is this player down for moving? And the conversation will already happen before an agreement's even made. Yeah. It happens way before that.
Sinistera has probably agreed to join
100%.
25 clubs.
100%.
He's probably already agreed personal terms with 25 different teams.
Yeah,
and it's 100%. Just a case of what can get over the line. So yeah,
I think that's the evolution of where we are with football. We remember back in the good old days for all of us, where a loan was a loan. There was no obligation to buy. For sometimes wasn't even a clause in a contract that you could possibly buy him. And let's be honest, loan deals didn't involve a fee.
No,
now we're seeing people go on loan for millions, and clubs are paying millions of pounds to get them on loan. That's a transfer. A lot of it is a transfer.
Well,
so,
Chelsea,
and we're seeing all this evolving. You can imagine players, potentially signing for somebody in your January transfer window. Allegedly, I haven't got a clue, but you could see that happening in the future, where, in future transfer deadlines is actually not signing on today, but we're actually agreeing terms so you can join us in January. I could imagine it happening in 5-10 years' time. It's just the evolution of football, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, João Felix, when he joined Chelsea, what was that loan fee? That loan fee was insane.
That
loan fee was like 20 million or something ridiculous for a loan fee. You were like, that is insane. So, all bets are off.
6 month loan at that. A 6 month loan. Not even a full bloody season. And it was like 18 and 20 million, wasn't it?
I've remembered the weird transfer that I was going to say earlier. Kai Havertz to Arsenal.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I'll give you that one. It's a very.
I think he'll do all right.
I think he'll do all right as well, but I still think it's a strange transfer. I think it's
an all right.
I think it's an all right. He's an all right player, but it's just a really weird one for the value.
He's just so I don't know. He's just so passive, and I don't know. He's just such.
I agree. I'm not sure where he fits into Arteta's plans and his style of play. I'm not convinced of where he fits into that, and I think example at the moment is exactly where Nketiah's playing. Nketiah's playing up front, and to me that kind of shows a lot of his thinking. He's also got Trossard as well. Trossard for me were one of the best Brighton players. We forget about him. I'd argue that Trossard's a good player.
I think Havertz for me is a number 10. He's not a striker. He proved that at Chelsea by being forced to play there when they had nobody else, and Aubameyang was having a temper tantrum again. I think for me, Havertz is better as a number 10. I think that's where he would play, or play in front of those two centre mids. Options out wide behind either Nketiah or Gabriel Jesus when he returns. So I could see Havertz doing all right. Maybe I'm just being really optimistic tonight with everything I say, but I think he'll do all right.
Talent, wasn't he? At Leverkusen, he was like a generational talent.
Yeah,
he's clearly got it, hasn't it? He's clearly got the quality, no doubt about it. I'm just not sure where he fits into Arteta's style of play for next few years.
Speaking of Leverkusen, I'm just going to quickly Google this whilst I talk, but has Florian Wirtz gone anywhere this window?
Still there, I think.
Oof. Football manager,
because he's like what you were saying about Havertz being that generational one. Wirtz is meant to be the next one, and he's still there. I'm really surprised that no top side, not even just in the Prem, but in Europe, hasn't gone for him.
What about this for a talent story today? So Lamine Yamal at Barcelona, the 16-year-old, has been called up to the Spain first team.
Wow!
Today, 4 appearances for the Barcelona first team.
Who's Spain manager now? Who's actually their manager now?
Is it Luis Enrique?
No, he's at PSG now.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
I don't know. We'll come back to that. But on the note of international call-ups, I've seen obviously Willy Gnonto has been called up for Italy, and there's been 1 or 2 Italian fans back in Italy. They're like, "What are you doing, calling for a second division player?"
Spalletti don't care though, does he? That
he
is
doesn't.
wildly.
He doesn't.
He gave Kyle Walker nightmares in that game against England in the Nations, whenever that was. Willy Gnonto gave Kyle Walker nightmares. Willy Gnonto was all of it. So he's.
To be fair, given the deal sheets, Willy Gnonto will be a Premier League player by the end of the night anyway. So,
well, what's going on with Willy Gnonto? Because it all seems that I can't seem to find anything definitive on him at all.
It does seem to have just gone very quiet. To say that, about 9:30 he was trending like mad on Twitter or something, they're thinking, well, is something in the pipeline there? It does appear that it's all gone quiet on Willy Gnonto.
Go on then, you two. Flip a coin, heads or tails. If you had to keep Gnonto or Sinisterra, but one had to go, what would you do?
Oof.
Oh, he's gone.
It's really tricky because Gnonto, you're probably talking about just in terms of fitness. He can start probably 35 games this season, whereas Sinisterra, You know, he
12.
might start. He could easily get injured. So from that point of view, you go, well, Willie Gnonto, you're going to get more appearances, but Sinisterra's quality is X factor. Do you know what I mean? It's the difference between, you know, what we did at Salford and what we did against Ipswich. You know, being able to put the ball in the back of the net. Oh, that's a naughty one. Jace, what Sinisterra or Gnonto?
You can't hang on, Steve. You can't pass the buck on. Get off that fence, Sunshine. Come on.
I do think
if you know what, I would keep Sinisterra. I would actually keep Sinisterra, to be honest.
I do think there is a bit of offence to it, because if you're saying that they're both playing 46 games, it's a no-brainer. Sinisterra all day long. Yeah. But the problem is with Sinisterra is he is likely to miss 15, 20 games, because that's what we've seen over the last 4 seasons, not just at Leeds. He's had one full season, the season before directly coming to Leeds, where he was injury free. But apart from that, he's had ACLs, he has made biscuits. So, but Sinisterra is just some player. But it's why I can also kind of not get horrendously hurt by the fact that he might go in the next 20 minutes, because I kind of think, well, he's probably going to miss 15, 20 games anyway, and I didn't expect him to be here. So I'm just like,
well, me and Jason went to the Shrewsbury game in the Carabao Cup, and Sinisterra came on for, what did he come on for, like 10 minutes?
15 minutes, yeah.
15 minutes, and we were just purring. We were just
it's just so
to watch it. You were just like, this guy, I mean, it's just unbelievable.
He played with them, to be honest with you. Did you see what he did to Brandon Williams? Poor guy. Just come off at bench, and he just absolutely destroyed him.
Go on, Jace. You answered one or the other yet. Come on, mate.
Based on what
if I had to keep one of them, Gnonto. Because I think Gnonto's resale value in a year's time will be exactly what it is now, and we're going to get more games out of him. If I had to say one, I would. Sinisterra's a better player. He's absolutely the better player. But I think there's just a bigger package that we'd get. So yeah, I would say.
Interesting.
I just got slightly confused because I just saw that Mitrovic was trending on Twitter, and I thought, Christ, is he moving already? Turns out he's got a hat trick for Al Hilal, and actually his first goal in that hat trick was beautiful. This Saudi league might be quite entertaining, actually.
Where's it showing? Who's showing the Saudi league? Someone's got the rights to it, haven't they? Who's showing
DAZN, I think.
Is it DAZN? Have they officially got it now? Because I'd seen that they were in talks or something. I didn't see anything confirmed.
I could be wrong.
It's on Twitter, and I hate to say it might look quite entertaining.
The Saudi Arabia football show coming soon.
Hey, if there's money in it, we'll be there.
Yeah, we'll do that. Or whatever, yeah.
We'll do a Saudi Arabia transfer deadline. I'm up for that.
Imagine that.
Mo Salah, 500 million. We're finally accepted.
That's gone quiet, and that's gone quiet, hasn't it, as well?
They've got their time, haven't they? They can buy their time, throw together a deal with like 250, 300 million or something.
The question is, though, where does it stop? There has to be a point where they can't pay. Like, they have to have a point where they say, no, that's too much.
Does the Jay? Because apparently they bloody don't.
It's just
no limit. I mean, it's really just because do you remember China when China and Russia were buying players for, like, you know, this is another level because there's no the well won't run dry. It's like,
well, we have to say about Premier League. Chelsea spending $1 billion. Where does it stop? We're only saying it about ourselves, aren't we? Oh.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, it is mad though. Like 150 million offer for a 31-year-old that on Football Manager I transfer list him anyway because he's 31. He's too old. Get rid.
Do you manage Liverpool on Football Manager? Oh my God, Chris!
No, I haven't. But I'm just saying, like, I've got this. If they're over 30, that's it. Transfer list. You're on your
over the hill.
Yeah, over the hill. Like, I'll take 10 million for him. Not 200.
James
Furlong, CEO of Liverpool. There, flipping it.
James Furlong has just signed for Hull or for an undisclosed fee from Brighton. He's a right back, and they were after Cody Drama earlier on in the day on a permanent, so they went for Furlong.
Cody Drama.
He's a
Is
good
he
player.
looking most likely to stay by the looks of it then? Looks
No, he's gone.
He's
that
gone.
way.
He's gone to
He's gone to
Birmingham.
Birmingham, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's gone to
He's
Birmingham.
gone.
Did it?
Well,
When did
Birmingham
that
got new
happen?
energy now, haven't they? With
Today,
the,
early today.
That completely bypassed me.
Yeah, on loan. I think the time we're right. Like we all wanted him to be the starting right back, but the facts are every time he's appeared for Leeds, it's just not been good enough. It's just
Ipswich
not.
were a disaster. Ipswich were just a disaster, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Not playing in his right position, but it's just for whatever
Still.
reason. It's one of them players that, to be fair, I mean, this is, you're going back to the old regime, but you look at Gellert, you look at Drama, you look at some of these players and not proving to be good enough. And this was meant to be our future. This was meant to be our Premier League future. And they're nowhere near enough. The 49ers have come in now and they're going, okay, JB and all these players
They're not good enough.
out. And then, we're going to get players who are good enough. I mean, it's just, it's so damning of the previous regime. It really is.
Sheffield Wednesday are doing something, it seems, 2 minutes ago. They've just tweeted some deadline day news coming up. I can't wait for this to be like tickets on sale for a cup game.
Don't go to bed just yet.
I mean,
Don't go to bed just yet at the moment.
To be fair, it was literally 2 minutes ago. It's already got 157 comments on it, like replies.
I'm going on.
So I can't wait for this to be something absolutely nonsensical.
There's another interesting
on this.
another interesting one as well. That seems to have happened in the past hour. Harrogate have just signed Middlesbrough forward Civi on loan, and Wrexham have just posted an image of the moon, which may link to Neil Armstrong, and obviously Luke Armstrong being at Harrogate might be moving to Wrexham, so that's one for City rivals as well to possibly.
Yeah, and to be fair, Luke Armstrong is a player that Harrogate have done really well to keep hold of for this entire window. Although you would be absolutely gutted if you're a Harrogate fan to have literally made it until 1 minute until the deadline, and then it's going to be announced in it that Luke Armstrong's gone.
Don't think he's been playing now, has he?
Are we all kind of like mildly satisfied that Wrexham are having like an amazing start to the season? I'm kind of like quite pleased about that.
Oh, you just love other clubs like sorrow, don't you? Really, mate? That's
no, but it's just like because everybody
I know what you mean, though.
To absolutely blow it apart, and the money and this. It's quite nice for like a bit of a reality check for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean
you can't just.
Oh,
I think they will. I think they will be.
Sheffield
I know what you mean, but I
Wednesday
think they will be.
have actually signed somebody. It wasn't all fake. They've actually made the sign. They brought in Jeff Hendrick on loan from Rangers, which actually for Championship level is a fairly steady signing. That
they were linked with that earlier on in the week. I mean, they need some bodies in, don't they? They're so bad.
That is breaking news as of 3 seconds ago. So that is a fifth. There we go.
Well, it's at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock is it?
11 o'clock. That's it. Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. It don't feel like it's over, does it?
Of course, Sinistera will run into the early hours of tomorrow. Of course, he will.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just definitely doesn't feel like
I
it's
ain't being a Leeds fan.
So it's mad because you can't even say, but like now, Windows closed, but it's like it's not, is it? Do you know what I mean? It's
it's not slammed shut. It's just slightly ajar.
Yeah.
I mean,
Liam Kitchens just joined Coventry from Barnsley. That's a pretty good signing. I quite like
that. Is a good signing. I mean, we've been talking all day in the WhatsApp group, haven't we, about what could happen. And well, let's be honest, Leeds has been thoroughly disappointing because we were talking like there could be 2 or 3 outgoings, there could be 3 or 4 arrivals, and there has literally been jack shit, nothing. We spent
We've
3
kept
hours.
you all day, Chris. We're still going.
No arrivals. I'm like, no arrivals.
We've been on air since 8:15, expecting something to say about Leeds United, and we've had bollocks all. Like,
it's true, is that?
What a waste of 3 hours we've been just talking for 3 hours for nonsense. Yeah, brilliant.
Huddersfield Town and Bradford City have done more than us.
They actually
listen. We did his deals yesterday, Brownie. We did his deals yesterday. Gruev, Frank Kamara. Like, we've got to be happy with that.
We got our business on it.
And I've said this a few times. That is a cracking pair.
I would agree.
You're referring to our off-air discussion before we start.
Gruev, though, to be fair, is a genuinely looks like a cracking sign.
I think Gruev's a top sign.
I mean, Glenn Kamara, how old is Kamara now?
27.
He's a good age. He's a really good age. He's a Finnish international. I think that's a really good set of signings, to be fair.
For £5 million, for, 11 million quid for the pair of them. Really.
Who starts, Jason? Do you reckon that midfield then?
I think it depends on who we play. I think against the better teams, you'll see a combination of the three of them. And then I think there'll be times where you'll have Gruev and Ampadu as like two double pivots, and probably then just the front four that we know. I think it'll be a mixture, and I think Archie will get time as well, because I think Archie is very different to the three of them. He's most like Kamara, but Kamara's better at running with the ball than Archie is. So yeah, I think there'll be game time for all four of them. But we've actually got some depth in centre midfield. That's
I mean, never had.
We go over deadline day though, still with Lewis Bate in the squad and JB in the squad, because it doesn't look like JB's gone out either. So who knows what we've got in store for them. Shackleton can play in there as well. So we have got some good depth in there now. I think obviously tomorrow I think Ampadu and Gray will start, but I would imagine that it'll be a mixture of them three will be predominantly the starters. I can't imagine Kamara coming here from Rangers to not be guaranteed starting. But I do think it depends on home and away who we're playing against.
Which is good. I knew nothing,
you guys. Because let's be honest. I mean, you've lost. I mean, obviously loans. You've lost. Rocker, Aronson, Forshaw's obviously gone to Norwich, Adams. So I mean, it's a pretty much a brand new midfield for you guys this year. That's it's a turnover and a half. Is that?
I'm not just saying this. Our team is better than it was last season.
Agree.
I was going to ask that question. 100%
stronger. It's way stronger. I mean, with or without Sinistera, it's stronger. You look at the depth that we've got in really key positions. Pirro straight away. I mean, it just changes the whole dynamic of the way that you feel about playing a game. With a player like Bamford, you can't, because you get that one moment and you need him to take it. Pirro's going to do that for you. So I think this squad's miles in front of last year's.
Do you also think as well, and this is potentially something that we ain't got a crystal ball, but coming this time next year or pre-season, you've got a lot of players out on loan and you might potentially sell them for fees. It seems to be that it's just turning to be a bit more healthy, doesn't it? Because I can't see all them players out on loan are going to come back and play next season. We're going to have to move some people on. So
that's never the
finances and your fair play seems to be just swinging in your favour then, doesn't it?
Well, the funny thing as well as Lewis is because there's still obviously people keeping an eye on what's happening to these players that we're loaning out, and it's pretty much been a disaster across the board apart from Rocker. I think Rocker's the only one who's made an impression over at Betis. Obviously, he came from there before. Aronson got sent off after 21 minutes. Rasmus Christiansen and Llorente got subbed at half-time for Roma. I don't know what Roma are thinking. I just do not understand what Roma are thinking signing these players from Leeds. It's unbelievable. And it could be. And I think if we do get promoted, it'll be interesting to see what happens next summer. For me, the only one that could probably come back where there's potential is maybe Aronson, possibly. I don't know. I know a lot of fans don't like him and, written him off. For me, I think, he's only 20, 21 when he came over. There's a lot of potential there. I still think there's a good player in there. I think he wasn't helped by the fact we had Bamford up front, who screwed up a lot of the chances he created. I think with someone like Pirro, you'd see something different. But yeah, it feels like at last it's finally turning in our favour, hopefully a little bit, because we spent a lot of money in the Premier League and we didn't recoup a lot. We only got good fees for Phillips and Rafinha. And to be honest, I said this to Jason. I said, if 49ers were in charge, I mean, Rafinha and Calvin Phillips basically came to the club and said, we want to go to this club, end of discussion. And we went, okay. I mean, we sold Phillips for less than 50 million. This is an England international. He was England's player of the year. He was a standout performer at Euros 21 and we sold him for less than 50 million. I mean,
I think Rafinha is the bigger one out of the two.
Rafinha, I mean,
he's the best player we've ever seen.
Rafinha was unbelievable. But he totally dictated. He went, I want to go to Barcelona. I don't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
You're going to do this transfer. And we were like, yeah, we got a bit of money up front from Barcelona and that's it. Whereas I think if it had been 49ers, it'd been like Willie Gnonto over again. It'd gone, okay, no. First of all, you don't dictate to us. You're under contract. You know, both him and Phillips had 2 years left on their contract at that time. So you've got a little bit of something to play with. But we just were like, no. Right. Yeah, you get what you want and you can go, you know. So it would have been fascinating to see what would have happened if they'd have been in charge then.
So if you guys put yourself in Farke's shoes right now and all the loans that have happened, you know, I'm throwing Greenwood in there as well recently. Is there one player you would have liked to have kept in at the moment to see you out for the rest of the season?
Are the ones that have left?
Out on loan at the moment, yeah.
It depends on how, because by the feel of it, like me and Brandy have spoke about this quite a lot. Like we're kind of glad to see the back of all of them. It feels like they all kind of just turned the back on us a little bit. The only one that kind of stands out for me is Tyler Adams, but even he kind of left under a bit of a cloud in the end. It was clear the club thought he was going to stay, was giving indications that he wanted to stay, and then that changed as soon as, you know, a nice shiny offer came in. So, you know what? Probably not any of them.
Well, Lewis, did you see what Jack Harrison said in his like goodbye post to Leeds?
No.
So this is a guy that had played with us for 5 years.
Yeah, he'd been with us a long time.
Won the championship with us. The whole Bielsa thing. And then he left and he was basically like, oh, keep an eye on results.
And it was like two sentences.
It was so dismissive and so it was just so bad. And I was just like, oh my God, you're no better than Rasmus Christiansen that's been here for a year. Do you know what I mean? It was like the lack of feeling. And that at that point, I think in the window when Harrison left, it was tough to take for Leeds fans because it's like you still have that thing where you go, the players, you know, you want to love your players, you want to be in this together, but when they say stuff like that, you just thought, this is no good.
I'm gonna put one out there that I would be happy to see come back is Mark Rocker. Like
there's a player there.
There's definitely a player there in the right system. I think is a top player. He's gone to Betis and so far he's doing well. Betis is the only one that's actually doing all right so far, out of the ones that have left. So and he always seemed to really give it, and he always seemed to really care. Not surprised that when we then go down, he gets a move back to Spain. At the end of the day, like I get it, it's a career for these players, and you know they don't love Leeds like we love Leeds. It's different. So, and he didn't leave in the same way some of the other ones did. So yeah, but maybe Rocker to kind of answer that question.
No,
tomorrow's a must win. Tomorrow's a must win for you guys, isn't it? Really on paper.
I think so.
We need to get a win together.
We need to get a home win. We need a home win again, especially against that. They're not playing well. They're a poor side. They're under, you know, a big cloud themselves, aren't they? And be all and end all the crap. So
yeah,
we should be.
We need a run. What we need to do is we need to get a run together now. 5-6 games, you know, wins. You know, we that's what we need to do. We really need to put us foot down on the accelerator and just bank some points, you know, because it's been a pretty indifferent start, to be honest, for everything considered. So
we said it last week, didn't we? And I think you obviously, I know you heard it as well, Brandy, but we're saying one with this probably especially last 2-3 weeks, probably been more pivotal for you off the field when it probably has been on the field.
Yeah,
in terms of getting yourself set up for the season, and it feels, even as a complete outside, it feels like you seem to have struck the balance relatively well for at least the next 4 months, 5 months, takes you through Christmas up to January. Yeah. Do you think they'll invest more into January, or?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I think there seems to be that potential. I think, you know, once they get a good look at Firpo, I think they'll go, right, okay, we need to do something here. I'm missing the game tomorrow, actually. I don't think I'll get to see any of the game, but I'm hoping I'll be home for Brighton, Newcastle, which should be should be on point.
If Byram had not gone down injured the other day, I think we'd be all sat here pretty chilled. Slightly disappointed that we didn't get a 10, but we'd be going into tomorrow's game being like, fine, the squad's nearly as ready as it could be. I think just that injury to Byram and the fact that we know he's going to get these recurring injuries is making us all feel like, why are we in this position again? Especially when we all know that Charlie Taylor is so attainable. Like, he's literally there for us. Like, just go and make it happen. It's going to cost us next to nothing in the grand scheme of things. But Daniel Farke, like I trust him. He obviously thinks he knows better to go with Firpo, Byram, and Shackleton. If what I said earlier don't come out and Spence doesn't start there, we'll see Shackleton there tomorrow. I would imagine.
I'm just looking on Sheffield Wednesday now. They've the announcements come through on it
for Hendrick.
Obviously, yeah, Hendrick.
So there has been an update from Graham Bailey 15 minutes ago, by the way. Bournemouth look like they will need a deal sheet for Lewis Sinisterra, but he's having a medical, looking more likely now. Leeds have agreed a deal. That's what it said 15 minutes ago.
Why would you agree a loan? I just don't get it. I just do not.
We don't know it's a loan yet. We think it is, but we don't know that yet.
Gotta get a fee, man. I mean, it doesn't help us now because we're not signing anyone else. But
you know what, though, Brownie, right? You know, the simple fact that we're prepared to reject 25-30 million for Gnonto tells me that if we're having to accept a loan deal for Sinisterra, there must be a good reason to it. There must be, So I trust them. Truthfully, I trust them. The signings that they've made and then what they've done and how they've acted with Gnonto, it just gives me assurances that if we're having to accept a loan deal, then fine.
Yeah. And we'll see. What's going on.
Yeah.
Oh.
No! This is a bit of a mad one. Mason Greenwood joins Getafe on loan deal. Back to Man United in 2024. Yeah. The move enables Greenwood to begin to rebuild his career away from United. Wow. That's a bit of a wild one, isn't
it? Sheffield Wednesday, by the way, room for one more.
All right.
1 minute ago, Sheffield Wednesday got another one coming in. Jesus.
Pope, Adam Pope, saying Bournemouth deal could include Jadon Anthony coming to us. Let's see.
That would make a world of sense.
That'd make a lot of sense. I heard that earlier on in the day, but it was from somebody that I didn't really trust, so I didn't say anything. Apparently, Jadon Anthony don't want to drop to the Championship, and that's what's been holding this deal up all day, but I didn't really trust the source. So,
right, get out. What we think of him then, Jadon Anthony? Are we happy with that, or what level we're talking about with this guy?
He's easily as competent as Somerville for me. I think his end product's probably a little bit better, but he's probably not as dynamic as Somerville.
Okay.
Again, we've got to remember where we are. And how many times have we said, Brownie, that Sinisterra is too good for this division? If we end up with a deal where we kind of circumnavigate the situation of losing Sinisterra by then bringing in Anthony, fine. Fair enough.
And we've kept the rest. No one else has gone by the looks of it, Gnonto or Somerville or any of that. Yeah. Well, fair enough. God. 49ers keep the cards close to the chest, don't they, with what's going on? Bloody hell.
Sweaty
Wednesday are doing now. Do you reckon they can't be playing tomorrow anyway, can they?
Nah, they got to be registered by midnight, so I wouldn't have thought so.
I mean,
enjoy the rest of your night, chaps. I'm off.
You're off,
Lewis, just before you do go, are you by any chance going to any of the Champions League games?
No, but I want.
He wants a ticket. That's what he wants.
No, I don't.
Brilliant. See you later, Jason. It's been nice.
No, listen. I work for Just Eat, and we get complimentary Champions League tickets. So I can't make any promises, but when I do get to put my kind of requests in, I will bear you in mind, and I'll see what I can do for you. I can't make any promises. No. I just want to put that out there, but I will bear you in mind.
Bear us all in mind, dear Jay. Bear us all in mind. Do the right thing, fella.
Cheers, Jay. Appreciate it, mate. Right, guys, have a good one. On that note, up the Abbey. See you later, guys.
Good luck tomorrow.
Cheers, tomorrow, mate.
See you later, mate.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to get to go to Man City Real Madrid last year, which was just insane at the Etihad. Wow. To watch Man City absolutely destroy Madrid in the semi-final was just incredible. So yeah, if I get opportunity to go up to Newcastle to watch that, I definitely will do. I'll see if I can get Lewis sorted as well, because I know they must be like rocking our shit, man. Them tickets.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder where.
I just want to kind of touch back onto this. He played quite a lot of this really does seem like a very good option if that does come to fruition.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. It's just. Do you know what? There's just Philae, Sinistera sounds like a deal sheet, so it looks like it's going to go through.
Brownie, you coming across as almost distraught. It's making me chuckle.
I felt like we were going to keep him. I did feel like we were going to keep it. Do you know what? I'm going to text Phil now and just say, "Is this?"
I said to you,
I'll do it.
Text me.
Right.
I said to you all window, and I've said to you all week, I wouldn't be surprised if Sinistera goes before the end of the window. Yeah. I said to you in the review, I think, to you guys last week, I thought he'd go.
I mean, Phil's tweet, to be fair, he's followed that up. So he said Sinistera sounds like a deal sheet, then followed that up with another one. Thought that Jaden Anthony comes the other way from Bournemouth if Sinistera move goes through. Leeds didn't want Sinistera to exit without a replacement signing. It's what we've been saying all evening, to be fair, without anything actually happening until, quarter past midnight? Quarter past 11,
That's the deadline. Yeah.
I know. I think if we get to the end of this, guys, and you know, the worst case scenario for us is that Sinistera has gone out and we've replaced him instantly with Jaden Anthony. I don't think we can be disappointed with that. I really don't.
No.
Tell that to Brownie's face.
Ain't it, Brownie?
Do you know what it is? It's when what we saw against Ipswich last week. It was like when you saw them four at the front together, you just thought this is you know. I nearly did an Alan Partridge quote then, liquid football, but it was like it was just unbelievable. But you know, I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, he's just too good for the Championship.
He's a cheat code.
He's too good for the Championship. You know, it's I mean, Bournemouth. I don't know what. I mean, God knows what they're where they're going to end up or what they're going to be doing. I mean, they do seem to have ripped off Leeds United's plan. Andoni Iraola, the manager, Aarons, Tyler Adams. You know what I mean? It's like Jesus. Sinistera. I mean, they do seem to be following our footprints a little bit. But
who'd have thought a club so far away from Leeds could turn out to be the nemesis of Leeds United this window?
They're a bit Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, they are.
They're just
tiny.
11,000 at home in Premier League. Like,
I remember when we sold Lewis Cook to them, because Lewis Cook was obviously, he was the Archie Gray of that era.
Yeah,
really. Central midfielder, England under 19s captain, or all that stuff. And we sold him to Bournemouth. I remember at times like, we don't lose players to Bournemouth. You have that arrogance of like, well, Leeds United, we don't lose players to Bournemouth. Do you know what I mean? But it's the Premier League, isn't it? And that's what it does to you.
But Birmingham are going to be dropping a signing shortly because they've put out a tweet, still work to do here with like the training ground and then the lights all turning on, which is really cool. Like if I were a Birmingham fan, I'd be buzzing about
that. They're a different breed now. They're a different animal, aren't they? With this Tom Brady now, he just seems to have infected the whole club, doesn't he? Of this kind of newfound confidence and
infected in a good way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which is a rare sentence again in itself.
Yeah. But it's weird. They just seem to be kind of. I mean, apparently beating Leeds United was the greatest moment in their history.
It's done. It's Oliver Burke. Remember him? Once went to Leipzig, I think. From
Sheffield United. He's been around.
Yeah. He's joined Birmingham City.
I don't think it's a massive signing. I don't think that's a super great signing, but it is competent Championship player.
Yeah, and given that squad before it, like their squad isn't great.
He's been around, hasn't he? Ollie Burke, he's been around. He were at West Brom for a time. He's been back and forward from abroad. Like,
I am right in thinking that he did end up in. It was Leipzig, wasn't it?
Leipzig.
He went to from somewhere in England.
Forest, I think it was. He were at
Forest.
I
think it was Forest.
He were on loan at Bradford at one point.
Yeah,
he had a loan spell at Bradford.
John Buckley. They've got him on loan from Blackburn Rovers. Sheffield Wednesday. That's their other one. Sheffield Wednesday.
That is a good sign.
Yeah,
he's a very, very solid centre mid. He's a proper. I can say it now because it's like 11 o'clock at night. He's a proper midfield shithouse. Yeah. He's a proper little ball winner. He's a cracking player. I'm quite surprised that Blackburn have let him go. If I'm honest,
they're under a bit of financial stuff though, aren't they? Blackburn. They're a bit struggling, aren't they? So it's
with that.
Fabrizio, deal sheet for Lewis Sinistera, but now optimism to make it happen with Bournemouth.
He's just regurgitating stuff at this point. We're already ahead of you, Fabrizio.
We got the inside scoop.
We got to say. Hull have signed Jaden Philogene from Aston Villa. Pretty good signing, 3-year deal.
That's quite a shrewd move.
Yeah.
They've had a better start than I expected, I think, all round of Hull.
Yeah, I quite like them. They've made some good signings.
Yeah, they've done some extravagant ones, haven't they? They're out there.
I'm just reading through.
I'm going to look all the way one. So you got like, who's this?
Burnley have signed another one as well, according to Fabrizio Romano 15 minutes ago. The son of Genk attacker Mike Trezor, apparently worth 18 million euros.
He's the other one. There's Pansel and Trezor.
Yeah.
It's kind of come to that Trezor has been the one that's ended up leaving all of a sudden. Morpay confirmed to Everton with option to buy from Everton to Brentford. Sorry, that's such a weird signing.
It makes some sense though. Because his best spell in the game, hasn't it, in English football was when he was at Brentford.
It makes sense while Tony's out, yeah.
Sinisterra done. Fabrizio Romano. Luis Sinisterra's new Bournemouth player. Done right now, all good. Loan move completed, but nothing about the other way. So
we'll see.
I can't have done a loan if the clause has expired. Why would you ever agree to it? There's got to be something like that. There's got to be, there's got to be something to it. That's a shame. Bloody hell.
We'll see.
Need to see what's going on with this.
I didn't expect to still be on at 11:30 at night. I'm not gonna lie.
But here we are.
You know what I mean?
I'm invested.
I know, same. I mean, back. Do you know what I mean? What can you do now? We've got to see. I need to know if we're getting a player back this way. Come on. Because if you just lose Sinisterra straight, it's like,
I mean, is tomorrow just a normal family Saturday for you two, or have you got plans to be up early?
I've literally got nothing to do all weekend. I'm watching the football tomorrow. I've got the boxing tomorrow night, and then the F1 on Sunday. We've got no kids this weekend. Literally, bliss weekend.
Bliss, yeah.
Wow, remember those non-kid weekends, Chris?
Oh, mate. Sometimes, take me back. Sometimes.
I'll be up at God knows what time, but...
It's the Dubois? Is it who's fighting tomorrow night? Is it Dubois? Not Dubois.
No, it's Eubank and Smith.
Eubank, that's it. Eubank Jr. Yeah. Is that box office, presumably?
Yeah, well, it'll be...
Yeah.
It'll be on the radio,
The radio.
Oh,
yeah. Did you watch Usyk last week?
Whereas for me, it will actually be on the radio, to be fair.
Yeah. Do you know what? I got a little bit into it when it was like Joshua, Wilder and Fury, when it was building up between them three, and then like Joshua and Fury never fought. Wilder never fought. I was just like, I can't be arsed with this.
I love boxing, but they're dealing with a very similar thing to what football are dealing with at the moment with the Saudi situation. Because the problem is, any mega fight now, they don't want to do it unless it's in Saudi, and it's for an absolute monstrosity worth of money. So the big fights just don't happen. Unfortunately,
I feel they missed because that is when the excitement was building. That's when it caught a bigger audience. Was when, especially when Joshua was undefeated. When he was undefeated, it was like,
I cannot stand Fury.
Oh, okay. See, this is another one we differ on then, because I absolutely love Fury. Number one boxer for me. Absolutely love him.
He's a great boxer, Chris. Just full of shit. Sorry.
I'm going to bring this back to football. Just touching on something I think that Lewis kind of touched on earlier, which was the Luke Armstrong to Wrexham. 10 minutes ago, that was confirmed that he'd gone to Wrexham from Harrogate. They, a minute ago, tweeted another signing anyone of Harrogate, so it looks like there might be still some movement for Harrogate Town. I know it's just out of our area, but at this stage, we're clutching at straws. There's not much going on anymore.
I quite like Harrogate, you know. I quite like their ground. They've got a lovely little ground, lovely place to watch football.
To be fair, I hadn't been for years. Obviously, went quite a bit when they were like National League North and still the same league as Avenue and guys like.
I think we did a commentary there, Chris.
I think we might well have done.
Yeah.
Last day of last season, though, in League Two, I went back for the first time in years when Rochdale were there on the final day. I cannot believe, to be fair, the transformation that they've had at Weatherby Road in recent years. It is frankly staggering how much that place has changed. Like, for the better, it's developed so much.
Wow.
And to be fair, and another tip and a reason for going, some of the best food I've ever had at a football ground at that at Harrogate.
It's nice, isn't it?
Catering.
I went there when we were in COVID, and I got passes through Stockport. They wanted me to. God, they were playing. Oh, I'll tell you who we were watching. I was watching Magic Gomez for Morecambe. They were playing Harrogate that day.
Was that Magic Gomez or was it Carlos Mendes Gomez?
Carlos Mendes Gomez, not Magic Gomez. You know what I mean, don't you?
Yeah.
He went.
Player.
Yeah, did he go on to Luton? And then it didn't work out. Yeah. I was watching him anyway, and he played all right that day. But because it was behind closed doors, like I got to sit with all the board of directors at Harrogate and whatnot. Like it was great. It was a lovely day. Like they were so nice. Like everybody was just so nice. Yeah, it was a lovely place to go.
I remember doing. Do you remember Chris doing Bradford Park Avenue versus Stockport? And we drove over to Stockport, and you were like, "Oh, this is like a League 2, League 1 type ground." You get in proper stands, like everything.
It's got Ben Parker up on stand, hasn't it? Ben Parker is on the, I want to say the south stand. Big poster of Ben Parker.
God, when would this? This must have been like 2012 or 13 or something.
It might have been before.
Yeah, thereabouts, to be fair.
Yeah.
But Crooking down to Edgeley Park as well, to be fair.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, some good ones. It was good on the Park Avenue, wasn't it? It was like it was a good little time for it, wasn't it? Then.
Yeah,
that was great with that. God, we're gonna have to get some comms going on West Yorkshire Football Show, I think. Right, let's have a look.
We might have to call this.
What are we gonna wake up to tomorrow? I was saying earlier before you came on, Jason, remember when we signed Nonto? We didn't know it was happening, and we woke up the next day and it's like,
I heard you.
Nonto.
I stayed up. I always stay up on deadline day. Yeah, I'm pathetic. I just love it for some reason. But yeah, I remember it was really late. I think it was about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning before it was actually confirmed. So 1 minute ago, Bournemouth have got a deal sheet in for Leeds forward Lewis Sarah, but the transfer is in the balance. Jadon Anthony to Leeds could be part of the deal. That's a minute ago.
Ooh, so who's that from?
That's on Sky Sports, so it's official. It's not done. It's not.
Oh my god, this is too like.
Forest waiting on 3 deals. They've got 3 paper sheets. Divock Origi, Sanga, and Omobama Dele.
Are they not done? Are they not done?
Not bad. I think they will get over the line, but Omobama Dele is a weird one because he's not played for Norwich this season at all. He's been on the bench for most of the season.
Yeah, I'm just seeing Southampton now. Ross Stewart, they put a video out. Finally done it. Wonder what happened there then. I wonder why it nearly got called off.
That's a weird one, isn't it?
Weird.
So you know what, mate, right? You know the fact that we've not signed Tim on, we've not signed Charlie Taylor, we've not signed, we've gone through all these. I think Luke Thomas was genuine. I do think Luke Thomas was a genuine link. I think that was one that Fac wanted. Yeah. But I think they've made the decision that the other options weren't better than what we've got. I think it was a Daniel Farke choice. I do. And we've not ended up doing it.
It's bizarre, isn't it? Because you look at the left backs. I mean, I know he said that he really loves Shaqs. He loves Shackleton. He came out and said that after and I'll be honest with you, I've liked what I've seen from Shaq over the last couple of games, particularly. And if he keeps up that level where it's like 6, 7 out of 10, even if he's playing at left back, it might be enough to just plug that gap. I think I don't know. Will it happen like that?
I think as well, Brian. I think what it is, I think we're again a little bit scarred from the fact that Bielsa forced square pegs in round holes all the time, and we kind of just never let it go. We never properly filled these spots in, but all teams have utility players that fill in and do a good job. And, I'm more than happy for Shaq to come in and do that. I like the lad. He's a lovely kid. And I do think he offers us something when he plays. And I think he's definitely better than he was 2 years ago. I'm going to say that. I think he's improved as a player. I think he's got a lot to prove. And he really wants to get stuck in. So no problem at all. I just don't want to be starting 25 games this season with Jamie Shackleton at left back because Byram and Firpo are both injured.
What I love, do you know what he's one of them players as well where he seems to improve as a game goes on. Do you know what I mean? Like when he starts a game, he's very kind of pass backwards, and then you saw it against Ipswich. His assist for Sinisterra is quality.
Quality, wasn't it?
Picks the ball up, burst of pace.
Drives.
Nobody can keep up with him. Drives forward, like you say, and then perfect pass. Do you know what I mean? You just think, well, there you go. Do you know what I mean?
Somebody's put on Twitter. Can't wait for Anthony's interview, and the first question to be, Jayden, what made you want to join Leeds? Like you didn't get bundled into the back of a van and driven up north on the shit end of a deal.
I like it when they make him do Leeds salute in video. I'm like, are you going to make him do Leeds salute? Do you know what I mean? Like, come on.
Glenn Kamara gave it a match on together yesterday. I thought, he's been
I know, yeah. Like, he has no idea what he's doing. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, can you just do that, please? Just as long as they don't get him before the side before self.
My dodgy Wi-Fi kicked me out.
Right, so Phil here 5 minutes ago. Bournemouth submit deal sheet to secure time to wrap up Lewis instead of signing. Season loan. Jayden Anthony expect to move in the opposite direction on loan to Leeds United. Byron Hitches.
That sounds pretty concrete.
But like, has he done a medical with us? Has that had to happen?
It won't have done a medical. There's no way.
But because it's not an actual transfer, it's allowed. Like, it doesn't have to be done.
The thing is, Brandon, you don't have to do a medical to.
Well, no, you don't. No,
sign It is something that clubs do to obviously protect against potential injuries, but you don't have to do one. There's no law against being able to do one. If Tyler Adams won't have had a full medical at Bournemouth, they'll have made an executive decision to sign him on the back of what he's given clubs previously, his previous injury history, how the injury looks like it's healing and all the rest of it. They definitely, they won't have done one unless they'll have done maybe a quick one down at Bournemouth and then sent it up or whatever. The clubs come to all sorts of agreements, don't they?
Yeah. So look, Getafe, they've just put out a little meme. It's saying, keep calm, announcement coming. I'm like,
I mean, they've put out a rather questionable video as well for the announcement video of Greenwood, in where there's a load of what looks like teenagers celebrating the fact that they've seen this tweet from Getafe, like confirming his signing. It all seems a little bit. It's one of those over there, probably less of an issue. Not big news at all. What's happened over here, however. Yeah.
I wonder what reaction he'll get over there. I think it's a really strange one. I mean, for me. I don't know if this is a controversial opinion, but I don't think he should be. I don't think he should not be allowed to play football ever again. Right? Like, it's a real tricky one. It's a sensitive one. Yeah. Totally not to get it. There's a way that he needs to be integrated back in. I think Man United have gone about it wrong. I think it was their problem to deal with. He's their employee. He's their, product. They've raised him as a man as well as a footballer. I think they should have been doing everything possible to integrate him back in. The problem with it is that fans would never accept it over here. But then what do you do? Does he not? Should he not be allowed to carry on playing football? Is that what we're saying?
It's. Let's be honest. It's an absolute minefield.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Well, we live in a time as well where there's no grey areas as well. It's like you either have to be on this side or that side as well, and it's like there's no grey area anymore.
I was speaking with somebody about this a couple of weeks ago, and look at Lee Hughes, right, as an example, right? He killed somebody, drove off, right? Yeah, then handed himself in the day later or whatever. Did time inside for it and came back and played professional football, right? Now, if fans can forgive that, and sure, opposition fans didn't let him forget about it. If you can integrate somebody like that back in, surely there has to be a road to redemption for this.
Do you remember I think he was a Plymouth goalkeeper, Luke McCormick, as well.
McCormick.
Was it death by dangerous driving? I think
it was on his phone.
Yeah. And again, kind of did his time in prison, came out and had a career. It's very difficult because, honestly, it's an absolute minefield because to an extent, I can see, I know what you mean, like United, it was probably United's kind of problem to try and solve, so to speak. Yeah. But you're right. It wouldn't have mattered what had happened with that case. Like the fans in the Premier League or whatever would never kind of take to it. It'd be dogs abuse, rightly or wrongly. It's so difficult to say because of the way the case in the end was dropped rather than proved. You know, it was never proven, but it also wasn't. He wasn't found not guilty either. It's a minefield. So
they were trying, though, weren't they?
Tricky one.
They
were trying to reintegrate
yeah.
They were trying to do it, and then the Athletic did a piece on it, which was, you know, they were briefing staff and everything. So
this is probably the safest. I'd use that term very loosely in this case, but the safest way of doing it is just give him a low move abroad and a fresh start.
Yeah. By the way, can I just say, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And his agent, as if that's Luis Sinisterra's agent.
I was like, why is his
that's
agent?
like Robbie Savage.
Yeah, I was about to say, why is his agent Robbie Savage?
Give dogs abuse to Robbie Savage now.
Fine.
So all we need now is the one of Jaden Anthony.
Well, we need the other way. Yeah, we need the other way.
Tape handcuffs on, trying to hold the shirt.
Sky Sports News announced 7 minutes ago that Jaden Anthony is heading the other way. Bear in mind, Jaden Anthony played 45 games in the season that they got promoted, and he played 30 Premier League appearances last season.
It seems, I'll say, absolutely on paper, a really good replacement in this case.
I think Pirro's the difference maker. I think, you know, we've got that finisher. I think if we hadn't signed Pirro, I would be worried about who's actually going to put the ball in the back of the net. Because we saw it against Salford, Somerville, Monto, Rutter, you know, very raw. They are raw talents, you know, and you need the finished article. I think Pirro's closer to that finished article, and obviously Sinisterra is, you know, very, you know, further on that as well.
Then again, so is Jaden Anthony.
Yeah,
He played 70-odd games in the last 2 seasons, and so, you know, a percentage of those at Premier League level last season bodes well.
The 45 games in the Championship, 8 goals, 7 assists, 21 chances created, 80% pass accuracy. You know, like the fact that he can prove that he can play that amount of games. Let's just put it this way: Sinisterra could have played on Saturday and got injured.
Yeah, well,
you know, at any time he could drop, and that applies to any player, but it applies particularly.
He could absolutely get injured for Bournemouth in the next game and be out for.
Let's be honest, there is a higher than average chance of that happening with someone like Sinisterra. As much as we love him as a player, it's like you said time and time again, Jay. The lad's made of biscuits. So.
Yeah. You know, I've not got an axe to grind within me. Like, you know, he deserves Premier League football. Out of all the players, like he wasn't responsible for us going down last season. You know, he didn't play enough to really, you know, if he'd have played 38 games, I think we'd have stayed up. I think he's that good. So, you know what? He wants to play in the Premier League. He's a Colombian. Fair enough. Go play in the Premier League. You know, for me, Bournemouth, nothing club, but.
Yeah. The big question now then is, now this looks like it's done and dusted. Can we go to bed now?
We probably should, shouldn't we?
Sinisterra's gone.
We need to find the other way, though. We need confirmation of the other way.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'll stay up until it happens.
He's in the back of a Renault Espace, like gagged and blindfolded.
I need to know. I need to know we've got something back. We can't have just done a loan deal. We can't just have loaned out Sinisterra with nothing back. We need something back. Come on. Right.
A good friend of mine who... 1 minute, Ryan. This is Bradford related. A good friend of mine who I really like. He works in football. Big Bradford fan. We ended last season knowing we were a couple of players away from automatics. 10 signings later, and we have a worse squad than the one that failed last season. That's exactly what I said earlier. But I think that's spot on. I think that's spot on about Bradford. Sorry, go on, Brownie.
No, I was just going to say, Phil here tweet 40 seconds ago. Luis Sinisterra to Bournemouth now. Agreed deal going through. Still to be announced, but confirmed that Jaden Anthony comes the other way.
I'm happy about it, mate. I fully expected Sinisterra to get over the line for Bournemouth today. I didn't expect it not to go through. And the fact that we've managed to replace him at such short notice with such a quality player at Championship level, I'm down. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, what are we getting with him then? I've not seen any of him. I don't know what we're getting with him. What are we getting with Jaden?
I honestly reckon you will have seen more of him than you realise. Whenever you've watched him today, you will have seen him like last season. He's genuinely been that much of a regular for them.
I would say, like,
especially when you've watched him in the Premier League, I think he should probably make more of the great positions that he gets into. Like he's constantly popping up in really good positions in the box, putting crosses across, and it'll be, the wrong decision, or he won't quite finish it with a bit of composure. But in the Championship, he was predatory. Like he was involved in everything that was good that Bournemouth did. He played under Scott Parker, and I would say he's a bit of a hybrid between Gnonto and Somerville. He's not as quick as Somerville, but he's better he's better in them half spaces. Like where Gnonto can like kind of turn away and move away, that Somerville just doesn't quite have that. I think that's the best way to kind of describe him. He's definitely not an out-and-out replacement for Sinisterra, but you're not going to replace Sinisterra. He's too good. Like he's too good at this level. You're just not gonna. But I think as far as what we could hope for, I think it's a more direct replacement than O'Reilly would have been. Put it that way. I think O'Reilly's more central. This is an out-and-out replacement for Sinisterra.
Are you worried though that we've lost that cutting edge with Sinisterra, and the fact that we've not got a number 10, we've not got a left back? I mean, we saw what happened against Salford. It's like that's what's going to be left now, apart from Pirro, obviously. Hopefully, Pirro can be the icing on the cake. But do you know what I mean?
I think the thing is, right, I think Rutter at 10, he likes Somerville at 10, and Pirro interchanging with that position. I think for most teams in this division, they're not going to be able to cope with it, mate. Salford in the cup playing all them players behind the ball, playing for penalties. Like we could have been completely outside. I don't think it's a reflection of what this season's going to look like. If anything, I probably think we've still got too much option out wide. Like when you really think about it, we've got Dan James, we've got Antony now.
Well, yeah,
Somerville,
Dan James,
Gnonto. We've still got Poveda on the books. Yeah, I don't expect him to play much, but he's still there. Like we've got an abundance of options out there, and Rutter's an out-and-out winger. So and then we've got Bamford coming back in. Like you got Matteo Joseph still here. Yeah. He likes him out on the left. You've got Gellart, who's still here. So you got so much option out there. I think we'll be fine, mate. Yeah, I'm disappointed to see the player of his quality go, but we've replaced him with another really, really good player. Yeah,
I hope so. I hope so. My worry is now you've gone from what could have been not a guarantee, but really pushing that top two to now where it's a little bit harder for us, I think.
Put it like
I think it's a little bit harder.
It would only be guaranteed if he stayed fit.
That's
and
it.
I would put a reasonable shout that give it 3-4 weeks when we're doing the podcast in a few weeks' time. We'll look and be like, Sinisterra's out for 2 months.
Yeah.
Like,
Jeff Hendrick snaps him on his debut tomorrow, and that's it. He's out for 2 months.
We'll take that.
I'm okay with it, Brownie. I think we need to deal with this with a bit of a good dose of perspective. This is not the worst case scenario today. We could have lost Gnonto and Sinisterra today and had no replacements. So I think we've done all right.
Yeah,
before we wrap up, I'm just having a quick look at the BBC. You obviously have that comprehensive roundup across. There's a few bits that I've made down the league in particular. James Chester, remember him?
Yeah, centre back. Hull.
Yeah, Welsh centre back. I think he was a Welsh international. He's gone from Derby to Barrow today. Now, I know he'll be like 33, 34-year-old probably, but that is a good sign for League Two. Do you remember Pippa? I mean, the answer should be no. He was a Spanish fullback who Corberan took to Huddersfield. Surprise, surprise, he signed for West Brom from Ludo Goretz over in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
It's also confirmed recently. I mean, the Premier League ones are always the ones that have been talked about all day. So Rob Holding, that's been confirmed after the deadline to Palace. 4 mil allegedly, which seems like a really good fee all the same. Brennan Johnson, that's done. Maybe not. I'm not quite sure how to view this fee. Like what, 45, 47 million apparently.
It's a bit like what Ollie said earlier. It's just standard fee in the Premier League now.
I love Brennan Johnson because he had a really successful loan spell at Lincoln a couple of years ago before he really started catching at Forest.
Oh, did they? Oh,
but yeah, it was our loan spell that basically made him really good at Forest the year after. So But 47 mil is a hell of a lot. But I trust Dan, to be fair. I like Postecoglou, so he might do well there. Gravenberch confirmed. I think that's a very good sign for Liverpool as well, myself. 34 mil. And then
Chris,
go on.
Can I just come in with this, because this is pretty big. Brown is going to love this, and your head's going to fall off. But so, and I've got to say, I hate to say I told you so, but I'm going to say I told you so. Okay. So Sinisterra had threatened legal action over the release clause in his contract. This is 4 minutes ago, by the way. Leeds wanted to keep him, but chose to avoid possible legal battle by allowing him to go. We're only prepared to lose him if a replacement could come in. Anthony is it. Phil here 4 minutes ago. I told you that would have been the case.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
yeah, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? But it just shows you these players, like, as much as we can kind of fall in love with them, they don't care.
Brutal.
They don't care less. They're in it for themselves, and you know what? Fine. It's the way that football is nowadays.
Wow. Threatened legal action.
Threatened legal action. Apparently, the same thing happened with Tyler Adams. Apparently.
I am so glad that I have a real love for like non-league football and the lower levels of the game, like, because you just don't get this shit. You just don't get this absolute nonsense of like legal action if you don't let me go to a club. I was
thinking the same thing earlier when I was listening to Lou and Dave talk. I was thinking exactly the same thing, because you still have that kind of romance of proper people playing for the fans that are there and loving playing football. And I get it. I get it.
The fact that you can get in, get a drink, and get a pie for a tenner. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had. There's ever been a summer where I've supported Leeds where I've felt less affinity with the players or less connection with the players. It's felt unbelievably brutal this summer. It really has. And to be honest, it's like, it makes sense that one of the players was going to put in legal action so he could get his move. It's just, Jay called it.
And there we go.
On it.
That summer of stress and anxiety and pain for you. He's over now.
I'm going to say an 8 out of 10 window.
He's sticking with 8?
8 out of 10. We needed a left back, and ideally we needed a 10, but it can't be a 9 or a 10 because we need a left back. But
go on, Brownie. What do you reckon?
10 solid.
I think losing Sinisterra knocks it down to a 7 for me.
I'm
really happy with who we've recruited. I think it's been exceptionally difficult in terms of everything that's going on, but I would have loved to have kept Sinisterra. I've got to admit, I would have loved to have kept Sinisterra. I really would.
You just wait till you're seeing Jayden Anthony belting down the wing and Sinisterra sat in the stands on crutches, out for 3 months at Bournemouth. Then you'll be fine.
I think we'll be looking at it and saying, we did all right there. We did all right. I don't wish any ill on him, though. I don't want to say
no.
I don't, because I love watching him as a player, so, whatever.
Yeah.
He's just made of biscuits.
Yeah. We're in that age, aren't we? We're in that age where it's like players do that.
We'd have never signed him in first place if he wasn't injury prone, though. We wouldn't have got him. He'd have gone somewhere else.
We wouldn't have been anywhere near him. No,
true. That is true.
Right. And let's call this a day.
It's probably the right time, to round that up, I reckon. It's 10 to midnight. The longest stream we've ever done here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. I doubt anybody has stuck with us for the whole 3.5 hours, but if you have, a massive, massive thank you.
Absolutely. If you're watching again on the replay, just to find out what happened, thanks for that as well.
There might be a few spoilers out there by now.
Yeah. But really appreciate it. We'll be back later next week. We'll see what's going on. Hopefully, me and Jess can get a match review out for
sure.
Sheffield Wednesday. We'll see what happens. But we'll be back. Won't we, Chris, next week?
We will indeed. We will.
And thanks for joining us. 3 hours, 3.5 hours we've clocked up.
I've been here since 9. I don't think that's bad going.
No, that's good. You've done well.
Lightweight.
But please, if you've enjoyed the video, please like, please subscribe, please share with your friends as well.
And a big thank you, of course, to everyone that's joined us. So Lewis Sale, to Ollie Johnson, who came on at around 8:30 as well, and to Tom Carnduff, who joined us just after 9 as well to talk about Leeds United at that point and all the other Premier League goings on as well. We never did get that slightly bonkers transfer, did we? In the end,
No, we didn't.
But
Did it not
weirdly, I
happen?
don't think it's. I don't feel like it's happened. But there's still time. We'll wake up in the morning.
Saudi deadline.
We'll wake up in the morning. It'll be like, that's the one. That'll be the batshit one. Yes. Cheers, everyone, for watching, for taking part in your comments as well. And we'll be back something very soon. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.